Good evening. Good evening and welcome to this, the May 13th meeting of the Livermore City Council. I now call the meeting to order. Let the roll call show that all the members are present and accounted for. Let me ask that you, let's see, hang on a second. There we go. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, just to confirm for the city attorney, there was no reportable action taken in the closed session?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Moving on to proclamations and presentations. This is we've been very busy over the last week. So I'd first like to present a proclamation proclaiming the week for the Affordable Housing Week. And I believe we have Darren Lowndes from the Executive Director of the Housing Consortium of the East Bay. Whereas quality affordable housing is vital to healthy, safe, vibrant, and diverse communities, and whereas creating new permanently affordable homes and preserving and improving existing housing helps our residents maintain community roots and encourages racial and economic diversity for generations, whereas the City of Livermore has a commitment through its inclusionary housing ordinance, Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and Housing First program to create new, permanently affordable homes for families, seniors, veterans, persons who are experiencing homelessness, persons with disabilities, and to preserving existing housing, which helps residents and the Livermore workforce maintain community roots. And whereas local jurisdictions, nonprofit organizations, faith-based groups, community organizations, and many others continue to build inclusive communities by providing shelter, homes, and support for low-income populations and those with special needs. And whereas East Bay Housing Organizations, EBHO, has organized Affordable Housing Week for 23 years and will feature 17 events in 9 cities, acknowledging the need for and the benefits of affordable housing. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Livermore supports EBHO's mission to preserve, protect, and create affordable housing opportunities, and hereby declares May 9th through the 19th as the 23rd East Bay Annual Affordable Housing Week in Livermore.
Great.
Mr. Lowndes. Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Great work. Appreciate it.
Sorry. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. Whoops. Knocked the nose off. My name is Darren Lowndes, and I'm here as a representative of HCEB and also a proud member of East Bay Housing Organizations. As mentioned, EBHO is a 35-year-old, 500-member nonprofit working to preserve and create affordable housing through education, advocacy, organizing, and coalition building. Thanks for recognizing Affordable Housing Week for your commitment to affordable housing. From May 11th to the 19th, we're right in the heart of this week. Our members are organizing 17 events in 9 East Bay cities to raise awareness about the housing crisis and to show the solutions that work when community leaders, nonprofits, and local government work together. I have some calendars.
Oh, you just give those to the city clerk if you wish. Thank you.
So those are calendar posters of the events, as well as a housing resource guide, pocket housing resource guides that you can share throughout the city. You can always get more too by contacting me. We chose Affordable Homes for All as this year's theme to highlight our collective efforts toward building a movement that values housing as a human right for all communities. We believe that housing is the foundation for stability, dignity, and success. Now more than ever, community leaders, organizations, and local leaders need to be united to ensure that everyone has a safe, affordable place to call home. There's so many opportunities for local leadership in affordable housing, and the funding and land use decisions that you guys make pave the way for equitable development that keep communities healthy, humane, and vibrant. And I applaud the city for your decisions and their impact. I invite the mayor and city council members to participate in some of the upcoming Affordable Housing Week events and look forward to hosting more events here in Livermore in 2019 and in 2020. On behalf of HCB and EBHO's membership, thank you very much for this honor. Appreciate it.
Mr. Lowndes, thank you. Next, we have a proclamation declaring June 6th, 2019 to be a day of thanks and remembrance for the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Normandy. This is particularly close to home because a former mayor, John Shirley, was one of the men who landed on Normandy 75 years ago. And I'm very proud to say that our new council chambers, which will be open in July, will be named for Dr. Shirley. So with that, we have a day of thanks and remembrance. Whereas June 6th, 2019 marks the 75th anniversary of D-Day, when more than 5,000 Allied ships and landing craft carrying troops and supplies crossed the English Channel to France's Normandy region. And whereas over 50,000 American, British, and Canadian forces landed on 5 beaches along a 50-mile stretch of heavily fortified coast, and more than 11,000 aircraft were mobilized to provide air cover and support for the invasion. And whereas an estimated 4,000 Allied troops sacrificed their lives in this assault, with thousands more wounded or missing, and whereas more than 9,300 servicemen who died in the D-Day invasion and subsequent missions are buried in the Normandy American Cemetery overlooking Omaha Beach and the English Channel. And whereas the Battle of Normandy resulted in countless untold acts of heroism during the Allied liberation of Western Europe from Nazi Germany's control. Now therefore the City Council of the City of Livermore proclaims June 6th, 2019 to be a day of thanks and remembrance for those who risked and those who sacrificed their lives in the Battle of Normandy to preserve our freedom and restore the sovereignty of other nations. And we have Deborah McMenamin, who is the regent of the Josepha Higuera Livermore Chapter, National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Well, I just wanted to, while we were here on this, I wanted to mention that my dad's been gone about a year now, but he was injured on June 6, 1944 at Utah Beach. He was one of those who was the first off the boat and yet somehow raised us all to the point that we've been raised and managed to, live a pretty good life. So it's a great remembrance. I'm glad you're here to accept it.
Well, there was a wonderful event that was hosted by the Daughters of the American Revolution at Asbury Methodist Church weekend before last, and it was honoring a number of veterans, and the Quilts of Valor folks were also there as well. So it was a very warm tribute to those that have served this country. So thank you again. Next we have June 2019 as Safety Awareness Month. And that is a proclamation. This will be to Risk Manager Janet Hamilton. So whereas the rate of accidental injuries and related deaths in the United States remains at unacceptable levels, and whereas the City of Livermore employees and residents deserve to live and work in communities that promote safe and healthy living, and whereas the Livermore City Council wishes to join the members of the National Safety Council and other organizations in their annual observance of June as National Safety Month, and whereas the City of Livermore supports national safety efforts and has taken a proactive stance in providing a safe and healthy work environment for its employees through the formation of the Central Safety Committee, and whereas the Central Safety Committee works to ensure the safety of all City of Livermore employees by providing training, outreach, and education, and by encouraging continual improvement in workplace safety and health, and whereas employees of the City of Livermore and Livermore Area Recreation and Park District are invited to the 24th Annual Health and Safety Fair on Wednesday, June 5th, hosted by the Risk Management Division of the City Attorney's Office. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Livermore proclaims June 2019 as Safety Awareness Month and urges all citizens to help reduce accidents, injuries, and illnesses by practicing safe and healthy behaviors in all aspects of their lives. Ms. Hamilton?
And we look forward to seeing you at our safety fair on June 5th. Theme this year is Safety Wars, and so bring your lightsabers. We have some good trainings: living pain-free with BAR, how not to need a chiropractor, identity theft awareness and prevention, fire extinguisher training, and the theory behind Orange Theory. Anyway, so we look forward to seeing you there. We'll have a number of vendors, lunch, and again, freebies. Great prizes.
Thank you. I noticed that we have the lightsabers there, and of course that reminds me that week before last we had the May the 4th Be With You Community Service Day, and that was a great event. Over 1,000 people out here. And then now we have a proclamation honoring the 100th anniversary of the Livermore Stockman's Rodeo Association. Now, this may sound familiar, but actually last year, pardon me? Actually last year was the 100th anniversary of the Livermore Rodeo, and that was such a great idea that then there was they founded the Livermore Rodeo Association, not to be confused with the Livermore Rodeo with the Livermore Stockman's Protective Association, which was formed after a disastrous fire in 1904. So what we have here is the 100th anniversary of the Livermore Stockman's Rodeo Association. And whereas the first Livermore Rodeo took place in 1918 to raise funds for the Red Cross in support of American troops in World War I, the success of this rodeo led to the formation of the Livermore Stockman's Rodeo Association in the spring of 1919. And whereas the Stockman's Rodeo Association went to work selling $25 stock shares to purchase land and build a grandstand and bleachers ahead of the second annual rodeo, which was held in July of 1919. And whereas in the early years, the Livermore Rodeo attracted many top professional riders and performers, as well as local riders, as its popularity grew and became a week-long event around the 4th of July. And just an aside, it attracted, as it says, many great riders and performers. And at the third rodeo, one of the rodeo clowns was Charlie Chaplin. So it was attracting quite a few folks to the area. So whereas residents and businesses quickly embraced rodeo time in Livermore, storefronts painted rodeo scenes and Western garb adorned the influx of visitors who flocked to the city for all of the activities, including the rodeo events, the downtown parade, and carnival, and numerous dances. And whereas in 1935, the iconic Livermore Rodeo earned the slogan, "World's Fastest Rodeo," due to the speed at which the chutes were filled and ready to go as soon as the competitors were ready, which is still the case today. And whereas now held in the second weekend of June, the Livermore Rodeo has become a celebration of our community's Western heritage and continues to draw thousands of visitors to the city each year and will continue to do so for many years to come. Whereas for 100 years, the success and popularity of the annual Livermore Rodeo is a direct result of the dedication and hard work of the men and women members of the Livermore Stockman's Rodeo Association. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Livermore congratulates the Livermore Stockman's Rodeo Association on its 100th anniversary, thanks to its members for their service and support in the community and the rodeo and our community's Western heritage, and looks forward to the Stockman's continued success for the next 100 years. And we have Dave Finster and Don Stasa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Over the last 3 years, the Livermore Stockman's Rodeo Association, I think we've developed a relationship that we've really never had with the city. And I don't mean just the council either. I mean all the wonderful staff too, because we've worked on quite a few projects with Veterans Avenue going in, and of course Stockman's Park. And the association truly appreciates everything that the city has done for us. Well, not just the 100 years, but especially these last 3 years. So on behalf of all of us, we just want to truly say thank you again. Did you want to say anything, Don?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
You covered it all.
Thank you again.
Councilmember Monroe.
I wanted to add something to that. Mr. Stasa at some point said something that really has resonated with me, and which I've quoted again and again as I meet other people from other cities, and that is that the purpose of Stockman's Park is to connect. You didn't say it quite like this, but this is how I understand it: is to connect the past to the present and the future, so that those people coming into Livermore, because it will happen, can understand what the heritage is. The whole state is in a situation where housing is happening. I use what you said going forward to think about how Livermore is approaching that. And I feel that those are just words that could inform other cities as well. So thank you.
Well, and of course, Veterans Way leads to Stockman Park. So I think that's it. Just underscores the long-standing heritage that the Stockman have in our community. And as I've pointed out many times, Robert Livermore and William Mendenhall were both Stockmen, and the city was built on their history and their heritage. So thank you for continuing that, and wish you another 100 years and then some. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm moving on to the Citizens Forum. These are items that are not on the agenda. The City Council can neither deliberate nor take action.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Oh, wait a minute. What am I missing here?
We have.
Oh, I'm sorry. Moving ahead here. I'm getting ahead of myself. We have an update from the Historic Preservation Commission. This is, sorry about that, Jeff Williams, Commission Chair, or Vice Chair, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members. The Historic Preservation Commission continues. Its continuing mission is to ensure that the city's historic resources and character are preserved. As part of this function, the Commission makes recommendations for documenting, salvaging, and preserving historic resources, as well as reviewing and approving modification and demolition of older properties. For example, this past August, Commission reviewed the proposed demolition of the Livermore Power and Light Building, also known as the Byerly Building in downtown, and that review recommended that the building's brick and interior archway that isn't visible from the outside but is actually quite attractive when looked at from the inside, be preserved and used in the downtown redevelopment project to the extent feasible. In October, of course, the train depot was relocated. The Historic Preservation Commission was involved in the approval of the removal of the non-historic parts of the depot, and also reviewed the plans to renovate the depot and restore it to its previous glory. In January, Commission reviewed and approved the porch and other repair for the Ravenswood Estate. Property is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Commission reviewed the project to assure that the site retains its historic character. Another Historic Preservation Commission role is encouraging public awareness of Livermore's historic resources. For example, this past year, the Commission approved a bronze plaque for 563 South Livermore Avenue that commemorates the property owner's connection to Tri-Valley pioneers. In March, Commission approved a bronze plaque for the outside of the new council chambers that will commemorate the history of the Livermore Rodeo and its connection to the Civic Center site. The Commission is currently working to prepare interpretive signage to be placed in the downtown area that will commemorate key areas and buildings in Livermore history. In this coming year, the Commission will begin the process of updating the citywide historic resources inventory, which was last updated in 1989, and also preparing a historic context statement. This will help city staff and decision makers better understand how properties fit into the historic context of Livermore to determine their value for preservation or potentially demolition. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Williams. And anybody have any questions? So remember, you mentioned the depot having been moved back to the tracks. Of course, the depot is why Livermore continued to survive while Ladsville, Elliott, and Tesla did not. But that we're celebrating the 150th anniversary in November of this year of the founding of Livermore, and that celebration will be at the depot. So just giving everybody kind of a heads up, mark your calendars that that'll be happening in November.
And the 150th anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad.
And the 150th anniversary of the creation of the periodic table.
All important things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Yeah. Oh, don't go away, Jeff. We got a question for you.
I was just wondering how whether Historic Preservation Commission also looked past beyond the 150 years, whether the mission is from the founding of Livermore, does it go back into the previous history?
The commission reviews changes to any property that is more than 50 years old in Livermore. So that could be really ancient stuff. But as far as doing archaeological digs or anything like that, no, we don't get involved in that.
Is there a way that we also mark, say, Native American sites or not?
When I've been on the commission, we have not had anything of that sort that came up. The oldest thing that we've seen have been things that were around the founding of Livermore, such as the depot, but also the Chinatown area that was around the old Coast Fuse place and things like that. But as far as being involved in anything with Native American relics or anything that might be found, that's really the Heritage Guild that gets involved in that.
And thank you for spending your time up here bearing the slings and arrows of, so appreciate your service on the council as well. And to your point, there were 50 villages around here of Miwoks and Ohlone and Futsi, but so there have been times when there have been construction projects going on where there have been Native American remains uncovered. And what typically has been done is they are either, they've been relocated in the past. I remember when I was on Zone 7, we ran into several instances where we found the Native American remains. In some cases, they've been interned at a community cemetery in Fremont, and in other cases, they're just reinterred on the site. But there's been no formal designation because there were so many villages in the area. Fortisworth. I mean, it's our heritage, so. Well, great, thank you. Okay, now got through the 2-point was a little more voluminous there. So now we're going to confirming the advisory body appointees and the administration of oath of office for a new member. I believe we have Mark Goralka is here for the, let's see, that's for the beautification committee. Good to see you again. We also are reappointing Kathy Norfleet for beautification, and for the library board of trustees, Jennifer Estridge and David Strubing. Are either of them here? Oh, David, please come on up. So we can. We need a motion. Do a motion to appoint.
Yeah, I'll make that a motion to appoint these folks.
I'll second that.
Vice Mayor makes the motion, seconded by Councilmember Coomber. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. If you would please, Ms. City Clerk. Go on up. We'll do a community swearing in here. And thank you, gentlemen, for volunteering your time to serve this community. That's part of the reason this is the remarkable community that it is. Okay, here we go. Now, I jumped the gun a bit there. We have the Citizens Forum. Once again, these are items that are not on the agenda. The City Council can neither deliberate nor take action on these. And I ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. We have Sue, Greg Scott, John Stein. Sue, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Susan Workington.
If you could pull the mic down just a little bit. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Susan Workington. And my friend Greg invited me here tonight to tell you what is going on, the story behind the story. Okay? There is an issue that I would like to tell you. I found out about it through a person that worked in the mental health industry up in Mendocino County. Now, I'm homeless and I'm very, very disabled. This collar is not a joke. It's real. It's because my spine is coming apart. I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I also have encephalitis in my brain, so I have to have spine surgery and then wait a year and have brain surgery. And I have one kidney, thyroid disease, on and on and on it goes, okay. But I'm very sick, and I shouldn't be outside. I stay at a friend's house once in a while. I go to Motel 6 once in a while. I go to UCSF once or twice a week. It takes up all my check for gas money. It's hard being me, I'll tell you what, you know, but I got to keep a positive attitude because I got to help other people if I have a chance to get well. Say I get stem cell surgery or something weird like that, you know. And then what the story is I was in the homeless shelter up in Mendocino for a few weeks and also down here for three days. And I called my friend in Mendocino because she told me this, okay, that they dump drug addicts, guys right out of prison, mental patients, and they dump carloads of them. Okay, in Mendocino County, they were very mean. Here, they're in the Bay Area, they're more tolerant. But these people come first because there's 3 types of funding. Okay, they get funded, a drug addict or a guy out of prison will get funded from the federal government. They will get funded from the state, and they will get funded from the county, okay? A lot of people don't know this, and I was lucky to find out because I was wondering why I came last and the veterans came last. I was wondering this. And I don't wonder anymore, I know. And I have to keep calm, otherwise I'll just blow it and get really angry, and I can't get upset because I'll get sicker and sicker. UCSF is really good to me. That's why I moved back here, so I could get to the Bay Area, you know, to San Francisco really easy. Okay, that's it.
If you wanted to finish your thought.
Pardon?
You could finish your thought if you wish.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, I would appreciate it if I was on the same level as these people, the guys who get out of prison, who get free Pell Grants. You know, they get free everything, and the veterans and people like me who are desperately ill from maybe Agent Orange or what I have are left behind. It's just not fair as far as housing goes, because I don't have any credit, so I have a Section 8 voucher, and I can't really use it because since I don't have credit, they're going to charge me $2,700 unrefundable to move into a place, plus the rent, plus the regular deposit. So there you go.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Oh, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Scott and John Stein.
You okay right there? Yeah. Okay, good. Be strong. Okay. Hi, I'm Greg Scott. I speak on homelessness in Livermore. Who cares? The homeless can die. The homeless can rot out there. The homeless can be unsheltered and sick without care, and the homeless can be harassed. Who cares? The way homeless are treated overall is disgusting. It is immoral and it is unethical. Koyaanisqatsi. Koyaanisqatsi is a Hopi word for life out of balance or crazy life. We had a meeting on Wednesday, May 1st on homelessness. Who could not be there? Those are the homeless I call invisible. They are living in their cars, generally working 1, 2, or 3 or more jobs, and are not counted in the point-in-time count. They do not want to be counted, for homelessness is a stigma. What others could not be at the May 1st meeting on homelessness? In memoriam, my friend Carl Feiner could not be there. 10 years of homelessness in a vehicle killed him. In memoriam, Grant Bascom could not be there. He recently committed suicide. In memoriam, Jamie will not be at any of these meetings in the future, for he hung himself behind the AMPM a week before yesterday. In memoriam, the 23-year-old Banta homeless woman will not be at any of these meetings either. Her badly decomposed body was found in the Altamont landfill at the start of the calendar year. She was identified by the skin remaining on the tips of her distal phalanges. Was she so much a piece of trash to us, or did she happen to be a human being? The excuse here is that government is a slow process. I hope you all are comfortable. This is like out of the late economist John Kenneth Galbraith's book, The Culture of Contentment. The homeless can die, the homeless can rot out there, the homeless can be unsheltered and sick without care, and the homeless can be harassed. Who cares? This is Agenda Item 3.0, Community Forum. It is no forum, for it is no debate. It is a soliloquy, like talking to a wall. The City Council gets the last word, where the speaker could be patronized by empty platitudes such as homelessness is a regional problem. Yes, homelessness is a regional problem. So what? Homelessness is also a global problem. The city we call Calcutta in northwestern India is a city of 14 million. 1/3 of these individuals are either homeless or live in shanties so scant we would consider them homeless. Is Calcutta in our jurisdiction here? No. Is Pleasanton, California in our jurisdiction here? No. Is Dublin, California in our jurisdiction here? No, it is not. We need to focus on the homeless problem in Livermore, California, where 243 are counted as homeless and 141 of those are unsheltered. Another platitude given here is that we do not have enough resources to house the homeless. Duh. Is there no vision for other avenues? Why do we then pursue a failed housing first dogma? Is the intent here to solve homelessness, or is the intent to play the homeless game of attrition? The homeless can die by can die, the homeless can rot out there, the homeless can be unsheltered and sick without care, and the homeless can be harassed. I have spoken at nearly every Livermore City Council meeting for over a year and a half on homelessness. Very little has been done to solve the overall homelessness in this time. We cannot even lift the greater than 5% chance of rainfall or less than 45-degree Fahrenheit restrictions on the Livermore Homeless Refuge, homeless warming shelter. Why must we so handcuff the ministry of Donna and Bob McKinsey with the homeless warming shelter? The short-term March-April goal for homelessness is safe parking. Hello, it is mid-May, and I have heard nothing about its existence. What is one more night, one more week, one more month, one more year, one more decade to the culture of contentment? Koyana Scotzi.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. John Stein.
John Stein, 1334 Cathy Court. There's a Senate Bill 50 that's going through the process. The League of California Cities and a number of local communities are already on record as opposing it, and I would like you to join them. Basically, what it does is the state doesn't take over planning, it just removes all of the controls that local agencies have. Density, height limits, floor area ratios, lot coverage on any site that's within a quarter mile of a bus stop that has regular service and a half mile of a train station that has at least one train a day. And now it's been expanded to neighborhoods that have good schools or a strong job market. That covers basically the entire city of Livermore. Basically, the assumption is that you can build high-density, high-rise housing with only 0.5 parking spaces per unit. That's another regulation. You can't go above that. The assumption is that mass transit exists, that you can build transit-oriented development and that it will be served. That's true in the area that the originator of this bill is coming from, San Francisco. It's not true of the fringe cities, the suburbs, and the other areas of the state and even of the county. They've now split it up. Before it was one size fits all, now it's two sizes fits all. They've excluded small cities under 25,000 and rural counties. But basically, the entire Bay Area out to Monterey County and up to Marin County and out to San Joaquin County is not excluded. It would be interesting to see, we've been talking now about transit-oriented development with ABAG and MTC for well over a decade, almost 20 years. It would be well to see if, for example, in Livermore, whether that is a fact or fancy, a fable. I'd like to ask the staff, the council, and the members of the audience if you could raise your hand if you got here any way but private automobile.
Repeat the question again, please.
Has anyone in this room gotten to this meeting with public transit, walking, bicycling, Uber, other than a personal automobile? I would assume not many. A good illustration is that the Route 14 bus stops at Pacific and Dolores. And as long as you can leave this meeting by 9 o'clock, you can get the last bus. So a challenge might be for members of the audience. Can I finish my comment? The challenge would be for each of you to try and live for a week without using your car, without your household using a car, except perhaps to get to the closest bus stop. If you try it, you'll find you won't need a gym membership, but you won't have much time for much else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. And I will tell you that I am a member of the Alameda County Transportation Commission, and we have a subcommittee to address Prop 50 or SB 50, and they combined SB 50 and SB 4. And it's very nice that they did they waived the requirements for Marin County. Everybody's happy to hear that. But we also are working very closely with Leave California Cities. So we are very active on a number of these fronts with that. To address Mr. Scott's point about the Citizens Forum not being a forum that is a one-sided conversation, that is because state law, specifically the Brown Act, prohibits us from discussing anything brought up during the Citizens Forum. So it's not because we don't want to be able to respond. Many times I do, and there are other members who would like to. However, the state law prohibits us from discussing anything brought up during the Citizens Forum. So that's the state requirement that's put on us by the Brown Act. So that's why it only goes one way. So thank you for pointing that out. All right, moving on. Oh, I have one more card. Carl Wente.
Honorable Mayor, Council, City staff, thank you all so much for what you do for serving this community and making it a better place. To those that volunteer, all the various commissions, all the various things that are out there to push things forward. Mahatma Gandhi said you can judge a society by how well you take care of the most destitute out there. Keep up the good fight of speaking that word. 230 some odd people, and it is an issue out there, but continue to take actions that make a difference and immediate impact in the lives of humans all the way through. For those that have to put on a bulletproof vest to go to work, I salute you. To all the great city staff that understands that government is a process. Again, trying to be on the will of the people, not the whim of the people as we go. 846 pages is not exactly right. You'll have to go through that, right? All of it, and that's part of it of going through as a glutton for punishment that wants to learn about this process and how it goes, the foundation of laws, the general plan that we have, the specific plans that go upon it, how all of that can be changed and the like. So again, just want to say thank you all for the service. Thank you all for what you do. The city staff behind me, thank you for what you do. I think Mr. Police Chief is here. Thank you for what you do, making the world a better place. Keep on the transit, right? We have challenges as a society. We know we have traffic coming through. I'd love to sit down with you, sir. You're on my list to call, just the continuing education of the
I'm
Valley
on a lot
Link.
of lists.
Well, I bet you are. But the Valley Link, how it can play in, where the stations go, what sort of
Sure.
building we have to have there, how the buses would flow in and out so we can. What a great challenge to not get in your car. I get in my car every day. I'm driving vineyards. I'm everywhere. But really celebrate the need to think about holistic ways that we can continue to improve day by day and the likes. To the Stockman Association, salute you. All the veterans out there, salute you. Thank you all for what you do. Cheers.
Thank you, Mr. Wente. Okay, with that, I'm going to close the Citizens Forum since I have no more cards. Does anybody wish to pull any items on the consent calendar for discussion? Okay.
I'm coming. Trust me. I have a comment on 412.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's. I do have 3 speaker cards, so let's do it this way. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. No, 4, 5. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so you had a comment on 12. And, pardon me?
Want me to just make it?
Sure, go ahead and make your comment, if you would. The census. Okay, the census. Yeah, so that's 4.12 is the census. All right.
Right. So I believe that the census is a proclamation that says more or less, we like the census, it's a good thing. Given that I would like to find ways for us as a city to do more than just have a proclamation, but also to ensure that everybody in town is counted, particularly as we go forward in an era where there's questions that are maybe added that may make that more difficult. So it's a comment. I don't know if that's.
Well, you make a good point because, as was pointed out during the Citizens Forum, there are some people that don't want to be counted. Right. And if people are not counted, then we get fewer resources from state, federal, and local governments. So it's very important that everybody gets counted.
Thank you for making that connection. I implied it. Thank you for
taking the bait.
No, that's good. That was exactly right. So yes, can we? Is that matters initiated or just?
Well, no, it's on the agenda, so we can talk about it.
All right. So let's. So can we? Can we do something more than just have a proclamation? Can we have a? And I'm not quite sure what that would be.
To the city attorney.
All right.
What latitude?
So your staff already does spend resources every 10 years on trying to maximize this. So from one end of the spectrum, from comparing various databases and other things to make sure that the federal government has all of the right information, from combining things like our outreach to homeless communities, communities of color, those who generally don't tend to respond to surveys in high numbers. So as the local development team, we do cooperate and facilitate folks actually returning those because for exactly the reason you both two mentioned, it's a matter of making sure that we are properly counted so that we have appropriate resources to deliver those services. So that is part of what your city does already. If you'd like more information on those activities, we can certainly provide those in a memo back to the council and then perhaps follow up further on at that point if there were additional activities.
Okay. Sounds good.
Very good. We can do that.
Okay, I do have 3 speaker cards. What I would like to do is if I could have a motion for 4.01, 02, 04, 05, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And I'll take comments on 4.03 and 4.06. So if I could have the motion.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Coomber, seconded by Councilmember Monroe. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We have 2 speaker cards on 4.03. Gustavo Acetono, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, and Jane Martin, 4.03.
Good evening, council members. Jane Martin. I'm from SEIU USWW, which is the union that represents janitors across California, and I'm here with Gustavo Aceituno, who's on our executive board. I want to talk about the janitorial contract that you have in front of you. Unfortunately, the company that's being recommended is an irresponsible company that's not represented by the union. And, you know, in this industry, there's a rampant wage theft, there's sexual harassment. When workers don't have a voice on the job, there's real dire consequences for the employees. The employees now do have a union. They have living wages. They have family medical care. We have workers on this account who've worked there for over 15 years and really rely on this medical coverage and on the living wages they receive as part of this job to support their families. I want to urge you to reconsider the award and look at the working conditions of the janitors, the hardworking janitors that clean the facilities here. You know, we know that cities have tight budgets, so that's an important consideration, but if you're saving money here, you're really taking it out of the pockets of those who probably are the least well compensated in the city family and, you know, really work hard and deserve to try and make a living in the very high cost of living in the Bay Area. So I have information here on, you know, responsible companies. There's a number of responsible union companies that did bid for this account, as well as a number that are not, you know, responsible union companies, and we urge you to hire a company from the list of companies where employees have a voice on the job, you know, have health care for their families and can live in dignity. And now I'm going to translate for Gustavo.
Buenas noches a todos, con todo respeto, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Gustavo Aceituno, soy miembro de la mesa ejecutiva del CIU.
Good evening, everybody. I'm a member of the executive board of the union SEIU.
Vengo en representación de 65,000 janitor a nivel California.
I'm here to represent the 4.5 thousand janitors that we represent across California.
Y tengo 29 años de estar en la industria trabajando.
And I myself has worked 29 years in the industry working as a janitor.
Vengo aquí en representación de mis amigos que es muy importante tener unión.
I come here to tell you about my coworkers and friends and what's important to them about having a union.
Primero por los beneficios médicos,
Most importantly, for health care.
Vacaciones pagadas,
To have vacation days,
días de enfermedad pagados.
paid sick days.
Y lo importante es que tener de unión es que se conserva el trabajo con más respeto.
And the most important thing is that when you have a union, you're treated with respect and you have a voice on the job.
Por eso vengo a pedirles a todos ustedes con mucho respeto
And that's why I'm here very respectfully urging you all
que no se que sean todos los edificios o todo lo que es de janitorial con unión.
that you have all of the buildings that are cleaned here by janitors be with the union.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And 4.06, Greg Scott.
Greg Scott. We're talking about resources here. We're talking about the Human Services Commission grants, $1,133,977. The public needs to be aware that's 8 categories. One category is for administration. That's just over $100,000. The major category is housing for $500,000, and there's a category for homelessness is about $250,000, $250,000. So 4 of the 8 categories are less than the cost of the amount for administration. Resources. It's been stated in this room that $120,000 is spent regionally per year per homeless person. That's insulting. My friend Carl Fainer worked decades in this community, put far more in the city coffers and the county coffers than he ever received in his 10 years of homelessness. $120,000 a year for what? For Kyle to dig through the trash downtown? $120,000 a year for Brian to beg for spare change in front of Pete's Coffee? $120,000 a year for Cindy to sleep with her face on the sidewalk? $120,000 a year for what? Lee to rot out there? Wow. So the question is, how effectively are we using these resources? You know, where is the catch here? Well, one effective way would be to do a data dump for Livermore of the coordinated services entry file of the coordinated services entry provider, Abode Services. You know, do the service providers do some good? Yes, they do. But there's so much a spinning of fatuous industry here, it's ridiculous. I witnessed Sue here go to the Abode Services Hope Van a week before today and not get help. What's up with that? You know, there's something wrong here. You're just pushing out money and you're not solving the problem. And you have no recourse of how effective you are at what you're doing. I don't understand this. It's ridiculous, and it's insulting. You know, if somebody looks at like the housing category, and you look at the entries in there, City of Livermore, amount requested and the amount granted, 100%. City of Livermore, amount requested, 100, you know, an amount received, 100%, 100%, 96%. Boy, if you took the City of Livermore out of the averages, the averages of percentage granted per requested would be mighty low. As Mark Twain said, there are statistics, there are damn lies and there's statistics, and you really manipulate the statistics there. Maybe you should tell the service providers how to do this prognostication of how to get their requests in line, because you have incredible insight of the City of Livermore on here. It's not hard to see through this stuff. It's sad. It's sad what's going on here. It's sad how ineffective it is. It's sad that people are dying out there. It's sad that they're suffering. And this fatuous just goes on and on.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Okay, on 4.03, there was a suggestion that we had accepted a proposal from an irresponsible contractor. It's my understanding that as we go through with these bids, they require these contractors to be responsible in their conduct and the way they conduct the business.
So we do reference checks on all of the projects such as this for contractors. The proposed contractor that staff recommends for the award this evening did pass that background check. It is true the City of Livermore does not have a law requiring that it only do business with union contractors. So that, I believe, is what the speakers were bringing up. That is not a city policy. The particular contractor in question did meet all of the requirements that you currently have on the books, as well as, of course, all state law requirements as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so any discussion on 4.03?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've had quite a bit of discussion about this over the last couple of, well, I don't know, last week or so, couple of days anyway, with regard to, and in fact, there's a memo that was generated, and I guess what I want to understand is the way this sounds to me is that we are in what could be considered a we're being asked to act in our judicial role as opposed to our legislative role. Whether that's, in other words, we're not being were we to say at this point we need to change the get a union contractor for this, reopen the bidding, are we changing the rules, or could we actually do that? What would be the consequences of doing that?
So to answer your question, if the city council wanted to pursue a different route, they could do that, and they don't have to go forward with this particular contract. You have that discretion.
Mm-hmm.
What the effect with that would be, and I request Public Works to come and speak to you, the existing janitorial service contract has been extended a number of times already.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have to be, again, revised to allow this new opportunity to be explored with the council how they'd like to proceed.
We would recommend it if you are interested in a change of policy or regulation, that we award the contract this evening under the rules that existed at the time that all of the people bid on the project, and that you have staff essentially explore potential changes in the rules. While you're not precluded from doing that, from essentially changing the rules in midstream, we generally recommend that with any of our contractors, so that we'd like to ultimately be fairly certain that the rules that are going to be in place at the time you award the contract are the same when people bid, so that they have a fair shot at bidding.
So, in other words, technically or legally, we could do this in terms of relationships going forward. We have a set of rules, and changing the rules.
Generally, your staff would not recommend changing the rules in the middle of a process.
Correct.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
So you understand the process. I think you fully appreciate the situation currently before you.
So if we wanted to go forward, if we said, all right, fine, I actually like following rules when rules are written, and but I'm not. I am concerned because I really appreciate what janitors do a lot. I don't like cleaning my toilet, frankly, and I appreciate having somebody do that. I appreciate, the most important thing we have is cleanliness. It's what keeps disease away. So I want to make sure that people who do that are well taken care of. That said, I also feel like it's not right to change things in the middle of, changing the rules in the middle just doesn't feel right to me. So what do we have to do? Do I have to do something? Do I have to do matters initiated? What do we do going forward?
Yes.
Yes,
matters initiated would be appropriate.
Okay.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion on 4.03?
I move we accept 4.03.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Carling, seconded by Councilmember Werner. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Just abstain on that? I'm not comfortable either way.
Wait.
I think we have a rule that if you're going to abstain, and you're abstaining, if you choose to do so, means a yes.
In the event of a tie, but yeah.
No.
But, no? Okay.
So if you the rules of procedure, the council's rules of procedure state that if you wish to abstain, you abstain prior to the consideration.
You're right.
Okay. Okay, because you discussed, right? You were part of the discussion. Good catch. Okay.
Sorry, can we clarify the motion? I heard 4 yeses, and Trish, I didn't hear your.
So it's unanimous. All right. Okay, and then finally on, let's back up a bit here. 4.06 is the resolution authorizing the appropriation of Housing and Human Services grant funds. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that.
Moved by Councilmember Coomber.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Monroe. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That also passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, public hearings. 5.01, this is a hearing to consider the downtown specific plan amendments and an addendum to the downtown specific plan 2009 supplemental EIR.
Yeah, she's got a bunch.
Mr. Murray.
Wow, that's irritating. She's got some.
Thank you, Mayor Marchand and council members.
Is this mic on?
A little closer to the mic. There we go.
All right. In January of 2018, the City Council adopted a redevelopment plan for the former Lucky site, which is also known as the Livermore Village site, as well as a city-owned parcel on the east side of Livermore Avenue, just west of the Bankhead Theater. The adopted plan includes, what's shown on the screen, includes new housing, new structured and surface parking, Veterans Way that runs east-west through the site, a Science and Society Center Museum, a black box theater, new retail and restaurant space around Blacksmith Square and Stockman's Park, and then on the east side of Livermore Avenue, a new boutique hotel. Upon adopting the development plan, the City Council directed staff to amend the downtown specific plan to facilitate the phased implementation of the each component of the downtown core concept. City Council approved those downtown specific plan amendments in September of last year. The amendments included an increased height limit for the boutique hotel as well as the L Street parking structure, which were necessary to fully implement the adopted redevelopment plan. The amendments also clarified street standards, parking management policies, and the city's intent to not develop the regional performing arts theater. As this plan continues to be implemented, some minor changes may occur to this adopted conceptual plan. The 2018 amendments modified 9 chapters of the downtown specific plan. Most of the changes provided clarity for future development by dividing the downtown core into smaller sub-districts, each of which had specific permitted uses and development standards. However, some of the provisions were necessary to fully implement the adopted redevelopment plan, including the increased height limit for the hotel and also for the L Street parking structure. In October of 2018, the city received a referendum petition that challenged 3 chapters from the 2018 amendments. Those were chapters 5, 7, and 8 that are in black on the screen. In November of last year, the City Council certified the referendum and repealed the amendments to those 3 chapters. And so the repeal reverted those 3 chapters back to the versions that existed prior to the 2018 amendments. The remaining amendments, however, that are shown in gray on the screen were not challenged by the referendum and remained in effect and are part of the downtown specific plan at this time. So before the City Council this evening are amendments to chapters 5 and 8 of the specific plan. These amendments modify the original versions of the chapters that existed prior to the 2018 amendments. And the amendments allow the implementation of the downtown core plan substantially as approved by the City Council in January of 18, while remaining consistent with the referendum. The proposed amendments are limited in scope. Generally, they remove a height limit exception that had granted additional height to the Regional Performing Arts Theater. The regional theater was removed from the other chapters that were not challenged by the referendum. So this change provides internal consistency within the downtown specific plan. Second, the amendments add public and private parking facilities as a permitted use in a portion of the downtown the north side neighborhood, which is an area just north of Railroad Avenue. And then finally, the parking section includes factual information concerning parking conditions in the downtown area. The Planning Commission reviewed the proposal on April 2nd and unanimously recommended approval, and the city received no public comments at that hearing. The council packet also includes an addendum to the 2009 EIR that was prepared for previous specific plan amendments that included the Regional Performing Arts Theater. The intensity of the proposed development that is part of the council-approved redevelopment plan is well below what was anticipated in that 2009 EIR. So based on the analysis that is contained in the addendum, staff finds that the project is within the scope of that previous EIR and no additional environmental analysis is required. So staff and the Planning Commission therefore recommend that the City Council adopt the resolutions that are in your packet to approve the addendum to the 2009 subsequent EIR and also approve the specific plan amendment 18003. So that concludes staff's overview, and we're happy to take questions.
Questions for staff at this point? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open the public hearing. I've got 3 cards. Drew Felker, Ali Felker, and Jeff Caskey. Drew, you're up.
Hi, Council. Please accept what the staff recommends and move forward with the project. I'd love to see a hotel in town, and I'd love to see the general plan updated in this way.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Ali Felker?
What he said. Thanks for everything you guys do.
Thank you so much for being involved. Mr. Caskey.
Good evening. Jeff Caskey, 585 South K Street. Actually, I'm not all that far away from their sentiments as well. I'm going to take a little bit longer saying it, though. I think I had a chance to flip through. I have not gotten through all, however many pages it was.
809.
Thank you. But around 263 is a graphic of the downtown plan as part of the showing. And I noted in this that there is, at least from my ability to tell from the map, there's no access to an underground parking for the hotel, which suggests to me that there is no underground parking for the hotel. I understand elsewhere in the report I read that this plan does consider ground level parking, surface parking in what we currently call the I Street parking area, I guess, and that other potential parking is being considered from other potential sites to be purchased. I'm very concerned about parking, in particular on that east side of the total development area. I think that as we increase the commerce on that side, both the possibility of having a black box theater is going to bring parkers on both sides. We're going to have more retail in that area, and then the current uses that are already squeezed for parking, the movie theaters and the Bankhead Theater and the restaurants over there are going to be even more squeezed. So I would first request that you pay attention. I don't know if it can be done as part of this resolution, but to increasing the parking on that side. I'd be interested to know for sure whether there is parking underneath the hotel. And given the kind of undefined words in the packet about how much parking is being added, it'd be very interesting to know how much parking is envisioned in what might be purchased on the north side of Railroad and the ground level lot at the so-called I Street parking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that's it that I have for the speaker cards. Mr. Spence, would you speak to the parking question Mr. Caskey had?
Yes. The city actually is, based on council direction, pursuing an I Street parking garage, and in the range of 260 spaces at that I Street parking garage would be constructed. In addition, the hotel is, they've not submitted yet their revised application. They're in process. They are looking at alternatives to underground parking, just because of the increasing costs of underground parking and the Bay Area construction climate. So they are pursuing other options, including surface lots for valet parking. But we don't have a final submittal from them yet, so nothing official on that front. We are still pursuing or anticipating a drive-through behind the hotel, as you see on page 263 in the site plan there, where there would be opportunities for drop-off and pickup and delivery that would run through that street that runs behind the hotel. There would be a limited amount of surface parking there as well.
So one of the other things that was brought up was concern about parking for the Black Box Theater. I think that's serviced by the L Street garage.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And in fact, the L Street garage is closer than the current parking next to the bankhead.
Right. So I think the thing to reiterate is it's my impression that we've always been paying very close attention to parking. I think, where did it come up in the survey as the concern?
Top concern.
That's right. So it's always been the top of our concern. No, there shouldn't be any doubt about that. And I think the point of view we've been taken for years is we will make sure that parking is adequate.
Did you mention the north side of Railroad?
So this specific plan amendment would allow public and private parking facilities around K Street on the north side of Railroad. We are in that area evaluating additional parking opportunities, as is the hotelier.
Well, but the I Street is the extension we don't need any modification of language for that.
No, sir. That site already permits parking, and we're contemplating actually an extension to the existing parking garage.
And of what size?
260 spaces.
260. And how many in the L Street garage?
L Street garage. 505.
Okay. Councilmember, any other questions?
I'll make a motion then.
Do a motion?
I'll make them.
Moved by Councilmember Warner. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Monroe. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That was quick. Great. Thank you very much. Moving on to 5.02. This is a public hearing for the requested rate adjustment by Livermore Sanitation. We have Helen Ling and Judy Arlinson.
Good evening, Mayor Marchand and members of the City Council. The item before you tonight requests that the City Council consider the annual adjustment to Livermore sanitation rates for the upcoming rate year 10 of a 10-year initial term. As directed by the City Council, staff is currently working on negotiating an extension to the franchise agreement with Livermore Sanitation. The franchise agreement states that Livermore Sanitation proposes rates, and it is the City Council's responsibility to approve rates by determining if the proposed adjustment complies with the methodology as described in the franchise agreement. In December 2018, Livermore Sanitation submitted a rate adjustment application indicating that an overall 4.01 baseline cost increase was warranted beginning July 1st, 2019. In any year, it is at Livermore Sanitation's discretion to apply rate increases over all rates proportionately, or to focus an increase on one type of customer or sector. This year, Livermore Sanitation is proposing to increase cart service by 1.12%. If approved, rates for cart service subscribers will increase from 32 cents for the smallest 20-gallon container up to just over $1 per month for the largest 96-gallon container. Additionally, the recycling and organics discount for commercial customers will be reduced from a 40% to a 25% discount off of rates for an equivalent level of solid waste collection. Aside from the rate adjustment, all other terms of the franchise agreement remain the same, including the 3 annual on-call pickups for residents of single-family households. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the upcoming rate year 10 rates effective July 1st, 2019. Thank you for your consideration, and staff is available for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions for staff? Okay, are there any, oh, yes.
Could you speak to where does most of the money go? In other words, whether I have a 20-gallon or a 35-gallon, how do we think about that in terms of infrastructure?
Well, the cost of service for each single-family resident is roughly $60 a month. So that's how that breaks down.
So in other words, whether I have the size of the can matters much less than the fact that somebody's taking a truck and picking it up.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. Seeing no cards, I'm going to close the public hearing. One of the things that I've seen on social media sort of ginning up is people are saying that because the prices are going up, but on the other hand, we do have better recycling, greater recycling capability, composting, and of course, as we all know, it's good environmental stewardship to compost and recycle, but it is more expensive to compost and recycle, although you guys handed out a couple thousand tons of, or several thousands of pounds of compost weeks before last. But why did we not continue our contract with the previous hauler? I see this come up on social media recently. That's why I asked the question.
Well, the main reason was because they did not submit a proposal to continue serving the city.
Right. Yeah. So they didn't submit a proposal, and that's why we stopped contracting with them.
Yeah. And that's a big reason.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that's a great reason. But people forgot that. And so I just wanted to remind everybody that that's why we moved to our current contractors, because the previous one did not submit a proposal. Okay. So yeah, right. That's right. Okay. All right. With that, do I have a motion? Moved by Councilmember Warner, seconded by Vice Mayor Carling. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to this is let's see, 5.03. This is Ponderosa Homes Residential Development Housing Implementation Program 18-001. Jake Potter is stepping up to the on-deck circle here.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight we'll be discussing a 9-unit subdivision along Lomitus Avenue. So by way of background, in June of 2016, the Council approved a 10-lot single-family residential subdivision at 1591 Lomitus Avenue. It's located sort of in red, you can see down here. The subject site's located in green. And tonight's proposed project has a lot pattern, home size, landscaping, and architectural style that are substantially similar to what was approved back in 2016. Both the subject site and surrounding property carry the same general plan designation and zoning. And the subject site, as you can see, is bounded by Concannon Boulevard to the north and Lomitus Avenue to the south. So currently, as shown on the image on the left, there's an existing residence, horse barn, and other related accessory structures. And there are currently 60 on-site trees. The parcel is about 4.2 acres in size. And image B on the right shows that Larry's Place currently dead ends into the existing vacant parcel, whereas image C shows at the bottom that the Lomitus Avenue frontage is currently not completed along the project frontage. So the proposed development, as you can see on the left, proposes to divide the parcel into 9 residential lots and 1 lot for stormwater retention located here. And it will also complete the Lomitus Avenue frontage and extend sidewalk down the western part of the Larry's Place right-of-way. Access will be provided by a new street down the middle of the parcel, and it will connect into the Larry's Place right-of-way via an emergency vehicle access bollards. So the bollards will allow for pedestrian and cyclist access, but will not permit vehicle access nor cut through traffic. And those are located right here. The proposed retaining wall along the Concannon frontage will closely match the colors and materials of the existing sound wall to the west of the subject site, and both the wall and the landscaping in that area will be maintained by the homeowners association. The proposed lot sizes, home sizes, and subdivision design are similar to existing development to the east and the west and the south, as shown in the image on the right. And it's also, again, substantially similar with what was proposed in 2016. We've sort of overlaid what was approved in 2016 on the aerial here, and then this is the proposed project for tonight's consideration. In order to increase the project's compatibility with surrounding development, staff and the Planning Commission recommend conditioning the project to only allow for single-story development within the project site. The applicant has agreed to this condition. And the project does conform to the allowed density and zoning standards. So as conditioned, the proposal would include two distinct plan types. Both are single-story and range from approximately 3,200 square feet in the case of Plan 1, which you should see at the top, and to 3,400 square feet located at the bottom. So each plan type does include a 3-car garage, and they will also have unique styles with multiple color options, as hopefully shown on the screen. So distinct, here, let me get back. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so Plan 1 is at the top up here, and this is Plan 2. So distinct roof plans, material palettes, architectural details, and porch detailing sufficiently differentiate the plans from one another. And the plan types will not be directly replicated adjacent to one another nor across the street from one another. And therefore, the proposed architecture is consistent with the city's design standards and guidelines. So the landscape plan, as shown on the left, does include oak trees along the Concannon Boulevard frontage and the Lomitus Avenue frontage, with the remaining balance of trees to be located along the street, along the interior, and in the front yards of each parcel. The plan does forego turf within the entire subdivision, instead using drought-tolerant ground cover, shrubs, and stones as shown in the images on the right. The bioretention area will utilize natural grasses, and nearly all plants are low water using. The applicant does propose to remove all 60 on-site trees, but will replace those trees with 78 new 24-inch box trees. And therefore, the landscape plan is consistent with the city's design standards and guidelines, the water-efficient landscape ordinance, and does satisfy the municipal code's tree replacement requirement. Ultimately, the proposed plan is consistent with the general plan, the municipal code, the development code, and the design standards and guidelines. It's also, as conditioned, compatible with surrounding development. And it's for these reasons that Planning Commission and staff recommend that the City Council make the findings, adopt the resolution, certify the environmental document, instruct staff to file the notice of determination, and approve the project. So that does conclude my presentation. I welcome questions you may have, but I think the applicant first wants to say a few words.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Livermore Planning Commission. My name is Jeff Schrader with Ponderosa Homes. I just want to, can you, did I say Planning Commission? I was just here a month ago. I want to thank staff for doing a really good job planning and processing this project for us in a relatively reasonable time frame. This is basically the second phase of an existing project, exactly the same architecture. We eliminated the two-story plan because some people didn't really like it, but mostly people really like the single-story plans, and so they're much in demand. And we're really excited about the opportunity. And I think I was Jake's first customer here in Livermore, and I appreciate his efforts. He did a great job. And we're excited about this opportunity to bring a few more wonderful new homes to Livermore. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for your time.
As some of us are getting older, some of us appreciate stairs less and less, and we really prefer the single stories. So it's good that you took notice of that.
Thanks. I'm looking for more opportunities. If you know.
I just wanted to comment too that I was also pleased to see it was single story because I hate coming downstairs. It's just ruins my whole day when I have to come down from the second floor. So I really appreciate it, and this is an easy one to back.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Vice Mayor Carlin.
Would you please mention how you're going to meet the city's inclusionary housing program?
Yes, we're going to pay the fee.
Okay, I just want to be for folks to hear you say that. Thank you.
Correct.
Okay, with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. I have two cards, Karen Jefferson and Greg Scott. Ms. Jefferson?
My name is Karen Jefferson, and I live at the corner of Sorrento Place and Lomitus Avenue. For the past few years, I've been very concerned about the speeding car traffic on Lomitus Avenue. The posted speed limit is currently 25 miles per hour. As Lomitus Avenue from the Catholic Church east to Arroyo is a straight road, many drivers ignore the speed limit, perhaps because they believe they have excellent visibility. Originally, this area was rural, but as larger lots have been developed, as the one in question, we have been getting much more traffic on Lomitus and traffic that is speeding. Lomitus is used by many pedestrians and cyclists of all ages. The cul-de-sacs cross streets on the south side of Lomitus are entering on a downslope and can be very dangerous for cyclists entering Lomitus with speeding cars. In March of this year, a neighbor and I met with Livermore's lead traffic engineer, Carlo Sandiego, and expressed our concerns about speeding cars on Lomitus. Carlo indicated that the city has contracted with a traffic consultant to develop guidelines and criteria to evaluate traffic throughout the city. The consultant's results are due in June, and until then, specific traffic concerns will be put on hold. In the interim, we asked Carlo for a portable speed radar trailer to be placed on Lomitus, which was done in late March for a short time, and additional speed signs along Lomitus. As one drives west on Lomitus from Arroyo Road to Evans Street, there is one speed limit sign within a block of Arroyo. Driving east on Lomitus from Evans Street, there is only one speed limit sign that is located at the Catholic Church. Carlo indicated that it might be difficult to place additional speed limit signs as there is currently limited space to do so. Hence my request to this council. As this development is an opportunity to positively address the traffic speeding on Lomitus, please consider adding space for traffic calming devices such as permanent speed limit signs and or solar-powered vehicle activated signs along Lomitus as part of this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Scott.
Greg Scott. Just pay the inclusionary fee. That sounds so cool. I think we could just take the money and make shelters for the homeless out of the dollar bills, maybe from those payments or something like that. I mean, it sounds great. To the 243 that are unsheltered, 3,228 square foot homes and 3,991 square foot homes when 141 are unsheltered. Wow. And then for the space, 13,585 square foot lots to 21,264 square foot lots, and you won't even consider AB 2176 or doing much anything about it. Wow. It's great. And how much water for that space? I'm curious about that, how much water in a state that requires 37 to 38 million acre feet. For the public, the acre foot is the amount of water to cover an acre to the depth of 1 foot. An acre is just over 208 feet square. That amount of water is about 326,500 gallons. It's about the equivalent of a full-size Olympic swimming pool. I mean, really what you should do here is ban lawns. It takes 40 inches of water to keep a lawn green, minus the rainfall of the year. Let's say it's 15, 16 inches. So it's 15.5 gallons per square foot of lawn per year. The problem here is, more and more water. So what are you going to do? Oh, you want to build a 35-mile long, 40-foot diameter tunnel, just down to one tunnel, Governor Newsom says. Right. The problem there is, as a professor from UC Davis says, it's not that you won't have an ecology after you extract that amount of fresh water from the delta, it's that you're going to have an ecology you don't like. But we keep drawing more and more water. I mean, you should at least start banning lawns. I can grow corn on 20 inches of water, and it takes twice that amount of water to keep a lawn green. It's just more and more resources and all this space. I mean, it just exemplifies the inequity the inequity in our culture, in our society, and the rigged economy, and the amount of resources. It's just, it's not fair, really. It really is not fair.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I'm going to close the public hearing and just make a point that this is 9 housing units, and our governor has made a mandate to add 3.5 million housing units in the state of California. 3.5 million. So when you start talking about water, that's my life. I mean, I spent my career in water quality, 4 decades. So I'm all about water and I'm all about conservation. And we do have programs that we've got work in place to ensure that we do have an increased water portfolio. We are talking about greater recycling. Both Councilmember Warner and I are on the regional roundtable when it comes to water and expanding the water portfolio. So we are very engaged in this. But to quibble about 9 housing units when the governor's demanding 3.5 million housing units, it's a much bigger problem, and it's a lot bigger than what we can serve here. But thank you for bringing that up. But as I said, we are working on it locally, but a lot of these problems are a lot bigger than we are. So thank you.
And those 3.5 million homes are on 21,000 square foot lots?
Yeah. So with that,
I've got a question.
Yes.
So I wanted to pursue Karen Jefferson's request with respect to traffic speed limit signs. Could you respond to that thought?
We could certainly look at adding a speed limit sign. I don't know if you already have in front of the development project.
So no speed limit sign is proposed as part of the development, but my understanding is there was an additional 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign added along Lomitus and Farmington Way, along with the speed trailer, and staff has requested that the police department keep the temporary speed trailer in the rotation, so that'll be in the
so there's
rotated through.
Two things. So I would want to make a distinction between something that's kind of permanent, like a speed limit sign in case somebody is speeding and hits it, but what? And then this other thing with the radar and the trailer and things like that. But as part of this development, we can be assured that the signage will go in.
We can add a condition. If the council would like to add a condition this evening, you can add one to include a speed limit sign along the frontage of the project site, and we will work.
Could we do that?
Find a place to incorporate.
Could we do that in both the north and south side on his development?
We could do it along the frontage of his development. Which,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
On either side, so going east and going west. He's got.
Well, typically you would put it along the right side lane.
Yeah, but Ms. Jefferson talked about only one sign going east from the Catholic Church and one sign going west from Arroyo, right?
Right.
So we need additional signs on both sides of the street.
We do. So the project.
But he owns the Ponderosa development on the south side as well.
Right.
So if I can try this, one sign we can get as a condition of the development. The other sign we can get the city to put up.
Yeah, this certainly. So the city could pursue a second sign and identify an appropriate location.
And so that would be, and that's not something we have to do in matters initiative. You can take care of it?
We can identify that. It wouldn't be a condition on this project necessarily, but the city could.
Okay. So then I would make, at the appropriate time, the, move the recommendation with that addition that we add the sign.
Can I? So what I heard was traffic calming. That could be, which is a little more general, and so that could be a stop sign. It could be a speed bump. I guess what I'd like to do is can we see that it happens in a way that's not that works. Not to say what, but to get the goal of
From
calming.
that perspective, we do want to be very clear. A stop sign is not a speed or a traffic calming device. That's a traffic control device, and confusing those two can get you into fairly horrible liability problems.
Never mind.
But beyond that, the motion on the table would be for, or on the floor would be for a sign. Speed calming devices that cause an interruption of the roadway, you generally have adopted a process which is a more community-wide or neighborhood-wide process because it does have impacts to the neighbors there. So while I think you could unilaterally add a speed limit sign without violating any of your past policies, something more intensive than that generally involves a hearing back before the council.
I would say, too, that I'm glad Mr. Jefferson got a chance to advise us of that. I don't get down in Lomitus very often, and I think that the two issues are kind of separate, that we do need to take a look at speeding along Lomitus, whether this development is approved or not. So I wouldn't make one contingent on the other, but I would start quicker with the speeding on Lomitus than I would, we can get the development hopefully passed. But I'd like to see that taken care of if it's that kind of an issue. If more development won't make it less, whether it's changing speed limits or putting in speed bumps, or there's any number of things that we could do and should do if we're going to increase the population down there, because that will only increase traffic and exacerbate the problem.
Okay. Any more questions, comments? Okay, do I have a motion?
So I'll move the recommendation with the addition of the one sign.
Sign. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Carling. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passed. Any opposed? It passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 5.
Just 1 second, though. Do we pick this up in matters initiated, or was it part of the discussion to also look at the general issue of the traffic and speeding?
I think that was included.
So
We should do back in June.
So we'd be happy to take a look at an appropriate location for an additional sign on the other
Well,
side.
I think it was the request I heard was broader than just an additional sign, but to come back with what measures are appropriate to deal with the traffic on that street.
Bob,
Would you like a memo response on that?
Yeah,
We could do
Bob
that.
can give us a little bit here.
And make sure the Jeffersons get that.
If I could just add, we are looking at, as the speaker mentioned who spoke to our traffic engineer, we are looking at cut-through traffic on neighborhood streets throughout the city. We have a consultant on board, and we're getting started with the analysis. So in a little while, we'll have a report to bring back to City Council.
And that would be the appropriate time to provide additional direction and or any additional resources.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Moving on to 5.04. This is also a public hearing. This is an authorization for the concurrent review of general plan amendment with vesting tentative and a site plan design review. So this is concurrent. This is not an approval. This is the concurrent evaluation of these. So with that, I hand it off to Andy Ross.
Thank you very much. And good evening, Mayor Marchand and members of City Council. That's correct. The item before you tonight is a request to review project entitlements at a future date concurrently with the proposed general plan amendment. In addition, we're requesting you to authorize staff to negotiate terms and conditions of a development agreement, and also to authorize staff to consider and explore a mix of on-site affordable housing options as well as in lieu fees. So the applicant is requesting a general plan amendment to facilitate the development of approximately 193 townhome residential units. This is the project site highlighted here. It's approximately 35 acres. It's north of I-580 near the First Street interchange, and it's accessed off of Springtown Boulevard here via Lassen Road. As with many residential projects, the development code requires a 15% of the units to be affordable unless council authorizes other alternatives, including the payment of in lieu fees. And staff's requesting authorization to explore a mix of on-site units to help meet current demand, but also an alternative to include payment of in lieu fees that would go into the city's housing fund and could be used for affordable housing opportunities elsewhere. The general plan amendment would change the current land use designation shown here. So we're zoomed into the site. Here's the project boundaries. And again, I-580, the interchange, Springtown Boulevard, and Lassen Road. The proposed general plan amendment would change the existing limited low-intensity industrial, shown here in purple, limited agriculture, and service commercial to urban high residential, as well as open space designations. In addition, the project proposes a planned development residential zone to address topographical and environmental factors associated with the site. Development code requires that council to consider a general plan amendment at least 2 weeks prior to any proposed zoning changes, which recognizes the prominence of the general plan in land use policy. However, the development code also allows for concurrent review if council determines that review of the general plan and zoning, along with other project entitlements, would be beneficial for the decision-making process. And staff frequently requests concurrent review to allow for a comprehensive understanding of the project as a whole. The development code also requires that additional design features to justify a planned development zone beyond those that are typically required. And these are generally secured and implemented through a development agreement. Staff has identified nearby trail improvements that would provide benefit to the surrounding neighborhood and help to justify the zoning change. The Arroyo Las Positas Trail, which is vaguely shown here on the map, which aligns this way and also through the project site. Improvements to this trail would fill a significant gap in the Livermore Trail network and would also accommodate crossing across 580 at Las Colinas for Springtown and North Livermore residents. So with that, staff is recommending that City Council adopt a resolution and authorize the concurrent review of the proposed general plan amendment with the other project entitlements. Also authorize staff to negotiate terms and conditions of a development agreement, and also authorize staff to explore a mix of affordable housing options, including the payment of in lieu fees. The general plan amendment, along with the development agreement, would come back before council at a future date with other project entitlements. And then before we conclude, your authorization of a concurrent review of a general plan amendment and the authorization to negotiate a development agreement does not predetermine future council actions. And that is to say that you would retain the discretion to approve or revise or deny the project when it comes back before you. That includes the development agreement. And that concludes my presentation. We're available for any questions. Thanks.
Any questions for staff?
So the trail that you showed that goes under the freeway, that's bike and walking trail?
Yeah.
And that means that one could get from Springtown to, from north to south Livermore without taking one's life in one's hand?
That would be the idea, yes.
I just wanted to comment on that too. I had seen a bit before, and I was hoping, because there is no safe way to get from Springtown into Livermore if you're walking or riding a bike. This would provide that, although it is not a perfect solution. A direct line in, it is a start, at least makes it safe, and I applaud any time we can add to the trail system in town as well.
And what's the situation with schools there? So would this affect the school situation at all?
So that type of issue would be part of the project review, and that would come back when the project's ready.
This isn't really not the project. We're just looking at concurrent review.
Okay. Still learning.
Okay, that's okay. That's all right. That's why we're here. Did the applicant wish to speak?
No.
Okay, very good. With that, I'm going to open the public hearing. I have 3 comment cards. Greg Scott, Connie Copps, and John Stein. Mr. Scott.
Greg Scott, why don't you just put the money forward to make First Street safe? You've got to go across Arroyo Seco, do a bridge. That's expensive. Why don't you address the problem and make it safe for people in the near term to get across First Street safely instead of an extraneous project? The question also is, where is this project in relation to the scenic corridor? I don't get it. It seems that people, the common comment in this room is an abhorrence of the Dublinization of Livermore. Well, it seems like you're pushing right on the Dublinization of Livermore. And then you want to change the general plan. You approve projects that are in the general plan, with like the Garaventi project, but then if it doesn't meet your needs, then you change the general plan. You vote consistently to do away with the agricultural heritage of this community, and you want to do it with this project. This is a rare opportunity to preserve some agriculture. The reason why you can vote away agricultural heritage of this community is because you intensify the energy use for our food. It takes 10 calories of energy to put 1 calorie of energy in our body. So we're shipping food a long way. We could produce food in this area, and it's just taking more and more energy, more and more vulnerable energy. As you've noticed geopolitically, the events in the Strait of Hormuz, 1/3 of the world's oil goes through that strait. That might not be so conducive if we go to a war with Iran, which seems to be heating up. You do this by availability of more and more energy and more intensive use. And we're on this track. If you notice in the last few days, the reading of carbon dioxide just went over 415 parts per million on Mauna Loa. That not only is the highest reading in human history, that is the highest reading in the history of humans. But you keep going down this pathway. You know, you're going to do the one trail, you're going to have to get an eminent domain by, I can just see you're going to go eminent domain by the landowner. You know, you don't take what, you know, the necessary route to make First Street safe. You just do an extraneous pathway. Wow. It's just sad. I watched you vote away with the land that people loved at Garaventi, and it's just sad. It's just like watching Earth Mother held down and savagely raped and listening to her scream. This is just beautiful area. It is heritage, and I think the people of Livermore are just getting ripped off.
If I could just clarify, this is not an approval of the project. This is whether or not there will be a concurrent review on the different elements of the project. So we're not discussing the merits of this. We're talking about the concurrent review of the elements of the project. So with that, Connie Copps and John Stein.
Hi, I was wondering if you could put up one of the maps that shows the area again. That's kind of like, if you're not familiar with it, it's behind the 7-Eleven and across the street from the Springtown Homeowners Association land, which kind of goes into the corridor golf course. And if you're not familiar with the population of that area and how it's sort of getting unhealthy, there's a lot of high density clustering. You've got the hotel, you've got the mobile home park, you've got the Motel 6, which is another hotel. You've got the temple coming in, and you figure there's a Catholic school, maybe possibly in the works, and there's also a couple, one church for sure. And the thing is, what our city staffers should have done is looked at Springtown concurrently in a better light. There should have been people in Springtown looking at the area as a whole. There seems to me that there's a real opportunity cost if this developer gets to build 193 units even if he does make trail compensation, because those trails were considered a long, long time ago, and there should be a way by now through the taxes, the sales tax. I think that should have been considered a long time ago. I'm seeing a lot of shopping carts left on our property, a lot of shopping carts left on the property across. It's just down the road a little bit from Bluebell there. If you're going down Bluebell, right past where you can't see Bluebell anymore, right beyond that, you've got housing from the Housing Authority runs 27 units there. So there's a lot going on in that one area. And I think an opportunity cost. On 2004, I hand-delivered a letter to our city, and it was addressed to Mark Roberts. I don't know if he ever saw it, but I did want to propose that we talk to a developer at possibly putting some senior housing on our property that's deemed open space, but there's already 2 buildings that our HOA owns collectively. There's, I guess, from what I heard, 505 people that own that property now. But there's some real confusion on the division of the homeowners associations in that area. And what I don't want to see and what I fear that I'm going to see in that area is as people buy their way out of their housing, how you can pay to opt out. I just think we're just going to get dumped on too much. It's really hard to take your children to school. There's not a lot of ways in and out. And I could go on and on. For the CEQA, why isn't there a review with all this? There needs to be a CEQA review. Why is there no historical significance to this area when I feel it's been swept under the rug? I think we should take it slow with any proposals in this area and try to be fair to the people around who also own land and might want to do something. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, John Stein.
John Stein, 1334 Cathy Court. In 1980 and 81, this property was subject to a referendum regarding the Scenic Corridor. At that time, I think a restaurant and a motel wanted to build on it. I believe the backside of the site can be built on if it's graded down rather than up like the Sage development. But I think a detailed Scenic Corridor analysis should be done before you even look at considering developing this property and seeing if it's feasible without violating the Scenic Corridor. I think if you do this, I mean, at some point you're going to completely destroy the Scenic Corridor if you keep granting exceptions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Okay, at that point, I'm going to close the public hearing. Just quick questions for staff. The question was made that why don't we use the money on this project to create greater accessibility in the downtown? And I think the reason is because this isn't the city's money. We're not spending any city money on the infrastructure here. All the infrastructure here is going to be paid for if and when this concurrent evaluation of the project elements, that then the developer's money will be spent on the infrastructure to gain access to the site. This is not city money. Is that correct?
That's true. So we're talking about developer funded project amenities, and one of the elements of the development agreement negotiating that would occur between staff and the developer is project components that can benefit the broader community. And so one of those that we're looking at is trail extensions to allow residents in North Livermore to have direct bicycle and pedestrian access across the freeway in a better way at Las Colinas. So that is what we're considering. Traditionally, when you have a development agreement and you have amenities, the intent is to try to benefit both the project site and the broader community. And so that's what's focusing on that area.
Well, there's on the project site, but we're not talking about spending city dollars to create infrastructure.
No, we're not.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Warner.
At this point, we're not, as you said, authorizing any particular project, and we're also not authorizing any changes to the Scenic Corridor requirements. Is that right?
That's correct. The project applicant is submitting an application consistent with the scenic corridor.
And I just wanted to clarify or get some clarification about, because we heard in the public comment about why aren't we improving the First Street crossing and such, and what is our responsibility and what is Caltrans' responsibility in redoing an overpass like that to create a safer environment for pedestrians and bicyclists?
So we do periodically throughout the city identify locations and prioritize them for pedestrian and bicycle amenities and improvements. We went through that with some of our planning recently with our active transportation plan. And interchanges are particularly challenging. The cost and the coordination that's required for amendments to those interchanges requires coordination with Caltrans. It's an expensive, time-consuming process.
One of the items also is in an interchange, the bicycle and pedestrian traffic ultimately has to cross vehicle traffic lanes. There's no alternative to that because of the on and off ramps. So even though there are wide enough sidewalks, there are clearly marked pedestrian crossings, some people still feel uncomfortable in those crossing areas even after those improvements are done because of the speed of the traffic nearby. So one of the things your active transportation plan did is look at not only making those improvements so that those would be essentially make folks who are in those situations feel more comfortable, but alternative locations as well where they are separated from high-speed traffic. And the T6 in Las Colinas crossing is one of those that was analyzed in your active transportation program and is a part of your long-range plan.
That was one I actually mentioned when I was a member of the LARPD board, that we explored finding a way to do that because it seemed like the only safe way in and out of Springtown into downtown, rather than try and coordinate with Caltrans how to revamp an overpass, either Vasco or First Street, to accommodate pedestrians and foot travel and bicycle travel. So thank you for that.
Councilor Monroe.
So I have a couple questions. I'm curious as to the status of the trails in terms of they're currently on what Catholic Church property, and do we has the Catholic Church agreed to give right of way or whatever is necessary?
Part of the DA negotiations would be securing who's obligated for acquiring the necessary right of way.
Okay, and then when. I'm curious as to the land is zoned agricultural with light industrial, correct? Currently.
It has a general plan designation of low intensity industrial and limited agriculture.
Right. What's going on there now, and what would happen if light industrial came in?
So the site has had this designation for a number of years now. It has obviously never developed with light industrial uses. You could have distribution facilities or small-scale warehousing or research and development, those kinds of things. The market just hasn't been there for those types of land uses, which is why we're seeing an application to change the designation.
Good. Okay. Councilmember Warner.
So I'll move the staff recommendation.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Warner.
Second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Coomber. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, it's 9 o'clock, so we're going to take about a 10-minute break. So we'll see you guys back here in about 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to round 2 of the May 13th meeting of the Livermore City Council. We're now back in session. We just got through doing the 5.04, and now we're bringing back to, let's see, I believe we're at 6.01, 5505. Hang on a second here. Let me get back here. You know what? I'm moving the meeting ahead here. Let me see what we got here. Yeah, well, let's see. Hang on a second here. Let me get back to our agenda. There we go. 5.05, there we are. This is the hearing to receive comments regarding the submission of the fiscal year 2019-2020 action plan for the City of Livermore's Community Development Block Grants. So it's the CDBG, activity for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We have Claudia Young, our program manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Today I have before you the action plan for our fiscal year, program year 2018-19. Before I start, I just want to give you a little bit of background just to give the public and everyone in the room a little bit of a connection. So in 4.06 was a consent item for the grant recommendations. This included our federal funds, which are included here in the action plan. And just for a little bit of background, our Human Services Commission oversees the grant recommendation process, and they go through quite an extensive process that starts actually in early October and November. They had many community meetings, they had focus groups, and they also this year decided to select 2 of the members or 3 of the members to be a part of a subcommittee that really sat with staff to really understand the different funding sources, the different restrictions on the funding sources, and worked with staff to make these recommendations before they were brought to the commission. So they've done a lot of work. They've gone out on tours to many of the different programs that we fund, and they also took some time to hear from some of the new applicants to give them a chance to explain their programs and provide a little bit of more detail. So that's just a little bit of background. So again, the action plan is specifically for our federal funds. So it is for our CDBG funds, our Community Development Block Grant funds, and our home funds. So HUD sets certain priority needs and goals. The main 3 goals here are creating economic opportunities, creating a suitable living environment, and providing decent, affordable housing. In addition, they set national objectives, which include benefiting low, moderate income persons, assisting in the prevention and elimination of slums and blight, and meeting an urgent need that poses an immediate threat to health and safety. Just to give you a little bit of an overview on the action plan, the city is an entitlement city for the CDBG funds specifically. And HUD defines the process by which the community needs are identified and resources are allocated. So they define the process for our community assessment, they define the process for application, and also they require very specific reporting for all of these funds. As a member of the Alameda County Home Consortium, the city also receives an annual funding allocation through the county. So that is a separate process, but it runs very parallel to the local CDBG funds. This is just to show you our timeline. So we completed our grant application workshop. We released the notice of funding availability. We heard presentations from new applicants. The Human Services Commissions then made grant recommendations. And now here we are today for a required public hearing for the funds. For our program year 1920, the allocations for CDBG for entitlement was $440,642. We also went through all of our prior year funding, and staff also found that we had $229,000 that we needed to make sure that we expended sooner than later so that we don't have to give those funds back. And in addition, through the county, we received our city allocation, which is $137,639. On April 15th, HUD provided the final CDBG and home allocations. This does reflect a decrease of 4% for CDBG and 9% for the home allocation. So today I'm asking you to accept and approve the submission of the action plan to HUD so that we can move forward with our grants, and to authorize our city manager or designee to negotiate anything related to the plan. And I'm available for questions.
Okay, any questions?
don't so much have a question. It's just, again, thank you for all the work. It's quite an effort to get all that figured out, so thank you.
Vice Mayor Carling?
Yeah, I echo his remarks, and I think you guys are doing a great job. I just would encourage you to not carry over money again. I know that's been a challenge, but I think it's important to get the money out and have it serve the people that need it. So it's a little worrisome that we've carried over money in the past that hasn't gone out, but I appreciate this is complicated, but do the best you can to get it out in a timely way. Thanks.
Because it's my understanding that sometimes the criteria to spend the money isn't developed at the same time as the funds, and you can't spend the funds because you're waiting for the criteria.
Correct. So sometimes we're waiting for HUD approval on very specific things. In some cases, there's projects that where maybe they don't expend the full amount, and so staff has diligently gone through to really look at that and pick up all those funds so that moving forward, we don't have this amount of money. But the amount of money that is available right now is specific to capital improvement projects. It could be used for economic development, but it cannot be used for public services, unfortunately.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
I just want to echo the thanks. This is great.
Okay, with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. I've got one card. Mr. Scott.
Greg Scott. What I'm concerned with is results. You spend the money, and what are the results you're getting? And over I say, you're giving money to abode services. The simple thing for transparency for the community of Livermore would be a data dump of the coordinated services entry file. How you don't have to put people's names on it. It's just how long have they been out there from the time they signed up for coordinated entry to the time they're out there now. I mean, how many people have been out there for the 5 years since the mayor's conference on homelessness? People have been out there a long time. The results, we've recently had 2 people take their own life out there. People, it's just results. You all have gone on a tour to see the homeless. I don't understand it, because I'd love to take you on a tour. It's desperate out there. You've got one woman at the homeless meeting we had on May 1st. She's been in her car 9 years. 9 years. A woman in her car 9 years here. She's not an outlier. You have another woman that's spoken before the city council here. She has a voucher. It's useless. Okay, she's been in her car over 7 years. She's a veteran. She was in the Navy for 10 years. I mean, what are the results? We just talk, spend, and come with a tour and see what's going on with me out there. I don't understand what you're seeing. It's almost incomprehensible to me that you don't see the desperation out there. But you're spending money. And why aren't the results better? Where is the performance review here of getting results? In this big picture, where do you expect the homeless to go? Where are they supposed to go? You have no commons. You have what for them? You have harassment for them out of the parking lots. You have a police officer who goes, Mr. French, you 5150'd him. And when he goes to the hospital, then his car's towed away with, how did that help the situation? So there's this talk in this room, and then there's the reality out there. There doesn't seem to be a match to me. I don't understand it.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I'm going to close the public hearing. Yes, I understand that last year he spoke to the suicides, and of course, mental health is a large component of homelessness, and it's critical. And I understand that last year there were $2 billion in state funds for homelessness and $2.5 billion of state funds for mental health that had not been spent because everybody was waiting for the development of the criteria on how do you spend the money. That's $4.5 billion that the state is holding up, that we would love to be able to put on the ground and help. The fact that there's a homeless veteran out there, I believe that's criminal. The Veterans Administration needs to step up. We live in some of the most expensive area in the country. And every time I've gone back to talk to the Veterans Administration, I make this point that they need to provide more funding for the veterans that served this country and that now need this country to keep the promise that this country made to them when they stepped up to serve this country. So yes, I believe that there should be more funds for the veterans from the VA and from the government that they served. And those funds, one of the things that we learned during our survey was over 90% of the veterans that were homeless, that were in our survey, over 90% were not receiving the benefits that they were entitled to. Why aren't they getting the benefits from the federal government that they are entitled to? And that was one of the initiatives that we developed after the survey, was that how do we connect those veterans to the benefits that they're not receiving? So there are mechanisms, and we're working on those, but it's going to take a coordinated effort, and that's what we're working on. But we need the state and the federal government to step up as well, because the city of Livermore does not have the resources. But that's why we try to align the people to the resources to which they're entitled. And I certainly appreciate the tremendous work that Ms. Young is doing and the folks in Human Services, because this is difficult. The people in our Human Services Commission are doing a phenomenal job. But it's how do you allocate those very limited resources? And we are committed to continue working on this problem. So thank you for the report. I certainly appreciate that. Any other comments? Okay, I do have a motion to receive the report.
A move that we receive the report.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Carling, second by Councilmember Monroe. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Thank you.
So just to clarify, the motion was to accept the staff recommendation?
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
And I'll also tell you, I'm working with a task force from Alameda County with the Alameda County cities on coordinating efforts to assist homeless in Alameda County, and there's close to 10,000 of them. So it's once again, it's going to require a regional effort. Okay, now matters for consideration. 6.01. Selection of candidates for the Planning Commission interviews. So we've got a few more, couple more applications. So the recommendation is to review the applications and select candidates to interview. So was that an opportunity to go through the candidates? What's the pleasure of the council? We've already interviewed a couple of them, and we've got a couple of new ones.
I'd be happy to interview the new ones, and so everybody gets one interview. Consider all, but only
so
interview
there's
the new
one
ones.
interview. You're suggesting that nobody gets an advantage by getting a second
Exactly.
bite of the apple, a second crack at an interview. But recognizing that since all of us sat in on the interviews, then we would all have the same recollection. Okay.
Well, so I would agree that I personally do remember. I have my own recollection. I don't know if it's identical to everybody else's. I have no need to re-interview anybody, and I also strongly believe that it would not be I don't know. I hate to use the word fair, but appropriate to give some candidates a second shot at an interview. So I personally only need to interview the new ones.
Vice Mayor?
Well, I'd like to interview all 5 of them with a different set of questions. We could ask the city clerk to pull together a different set of questions so that the previous candidates would have to answer a different set of questions than they did before.
Councilmember Coon?
I would like to interview all 5 of them too. I would like to see this as a new start, a fresh start for everybody, And although we have heard from the other ones before, I just want to make sure that we are everybody is clear on who stands for what, who wants what, and anybody who applies should be entitled to an interview. This is a whole new process from the last one. This is not a continuation.
It's 2-2, huh?
Yeah, there is.
Well, we can discuss it a little bit more. Sound like you have something else to say?
Well, it can't be. You can't erase. You can't start fresh. What are you going to do? Erase your memory? That it doesn't work that way.
I disagree.
Oh, really? I don't see how. Some of the questions that we asked are questions that have to be asked again.
No, they don't.
Okay.
I would disagree because there are certain fundamental issues around
Okay, fine.
around planning.
I don't agree.
And
That's okay.
development. Planning and development codes and general plans and the like. And I think those are fundamental to understanding the whole process behind the importance of the planning commission. And obviously,
We can have a different point of view on this.
However, I would also add
That's
that
okay.
that this is in response to a resignation from a newly appointed member, and that we've restarted the process. We didn't continue the process, so we're restarting it. If someone wants to apply again, as we have a couple that have been through this before, then let's go through it again as if it's a brand new. We put it out there again. That's just do it the honorable way.
Oh, I don't know if I'd call it the honorable way. That's well, you're saying that if somebody didn't do well with the first set of questions, we give them a second set of questions.
Right.
That's an honorable thing to do.
Yeah, well,
I think because we're starting fresh, that doesn't preclude anybody's right. I'm not aware of anything in policy that would preclude anybody who's already applied from reapplying. Correct? So we're starting with a fresh set to replace a resigned member, and we're not continuing what we did the last time we conducted interviews. So if you have to reconduct interviews, whether we use the current set of questions or to establish a new set of questions, is just fine with me.
So I would just suggest we don't use words like honorable, because you use honorable.
I did
use
that on
fair.
purpose.
I know. But what I'm saying is, I know you. But I think it's just a question of procedure. In my belief, either way, you can use whatever kind of adjective you want to use, depending on your point of view. But I would just suggest that what we're about is which procedural method do we prefer, and not. I would stay away from the pejorative words or the vice versa.
I agree.
And I actually want to go even further than that, which is to say I think there's honor on both sides. You can make the argument that actually in doing it this way, you actually are, it's a close enough in time that you're giving the people who reapplied an advantage. Now, I actually think you can make an argument both ways. I'm perfectly happy to disagree, to agree to disagree, and recognize that there is a valid argument that can be made that's honorable both directions. But I do take great exception to that use.
Oh. You know me. Sometimes you just say things,
Well,
and in fact, but I just believe we start. This is as if we're starting fresh with 5 new applicants. I'm not.
And that's a perfectly valid approach, and I appreciate it. I may disagree with it, I may not, but it's 2 different approaches. They both have merit.
Okay, so it wasn't that long ago that we went through these interviews, and I actually have a very good recollection of the interviews that we had conducted. And to Councilmember Coomber's point, that was kind of a shock when the person that one of the 2 people we selected ended up resigning. But my memory is still very good for that interview, and I would be comfortable just interviewing the new candidates with the memory very fresh in my mind of the previous candidates. And I do remember how each of those candidates performed in the interview. And I'm comfortable moving ahead just interviewing the 2 new candidates. So with that, does this require a motion or just consensus?
A motion would provide a little clarity.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to accept the two new candidates, keeping in mind that the other candidates who will not be interviewed will still be under consideration? Do I have a motion to that effect?
I'm also moved to that effect.
Okay. Is there a second?
Apparently, I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that motion?
I disagree.
As is your prerogative.
That's not a discussion.
Thank you. I know how to do this.
Absolutely. Understood. Okay. So all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay. The ayes carry it. That the two candidates who will be interviewed will be Paul Halverson and Michael Miller. However, Loretta Caskey, Bob Klubal, and John Stein will still be considered for the position. Does that provide sufficient clarity?
Yes.
Okay, very good. 6.02, this is the city support of community activities that celebrate diversity.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Christine Martin, your Deputy City Manager. At your last council meeting, Council adopted a proclamation supporting a culture of welcome, inclusion, and respect. You also directed staff to return with options for Council to consider Council and staff participation in community activities celebrating diversity. The report in your packet outlines several options centered on two broad categories. The first category are options that involve council participation with minimal staff resources, and those included 3 items. First, attending social or ceremonial events. Second is collaboration with the school district and the college district. And third was to conduct topic-specific workshops. And this second broad category involved staff resources, or city resources, that included financial and staff resources. And there were 3 items in that category. Those involved special event permits, the Livermore Youth Advisory Commission, and general fund contribution. As a variation to council participation at ceremonial or social events outlined in the report, council could also, either individually or in 2-person groups, do informal meet and greets, such as coffee with council or informal meet and greets at other coordinated events. This concludes staff's presentation, and we are available for any questions you may have.
Okay, questions of staff at this point? Okay. I do have a speaker card. Shayna Pete. Partners for Change.
That's me. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the council and staff for the opportunity to address you all. And I just wanted to reiterate my support of what you all are making an effort to do and supporting efforts like the one that I'm a coordinator for, which is the Rally for Love coming up on June 9th at the Bankhead. And we've just been really excited to hear the buzz and the conversation that's been happening around how we can bring other organizations into the fold with the support of the city. And we're just wanting to emphasize that we hope that you'll move forward with it. And I'm very excited to hear of the ways that were suggested this evening to be to show your support. I think those would be hugely helpful and could really propel us to make the events bigger, more widespread than they have been before. So we are hoping that this collaboration is something that will come forward and get better and better. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public comment period and bring it back to the council. So, take it away.
Can I ask a question? So, on option 1, for example, if we get an invitation, you're expecting us to send the adopted diversity proclamation to the people doing the inviting, and then also alert everybody else on council that I got an invitation?
as far as the invitations go, what was envisioned there is that we often know the events that are on your calendars, and we can share those in a weekly update just to say what events are out there. And we used to do that, a weekly event notification. We do that with city events and other community-related events, just to say who is attending and who has accepted the invite. So wouldn't necessarily ask you, or you. It's up to the council's pleasure. It was just an option that was provided if you wanted to share those events that came personally to you, not through the city. But we were just talking about the city-related invites. And on the second part of your question on the proclamation, that's also just a suggestion if the such event that you would be attending, if it would be relevant to bring a proclamation to that event, that could be, we could provide that for you if you chose to do so.
Okay.
So I am asked to speak at a lot of these events, and I go to a lot of these, and that's why, to the point that we don't just need a piece of paper to show that we celebrate diversity. We live this. We live on a frequent basis. So I will admit, for significant events, for example, it was I believe the 40th anniversary of the Native American powwow that we had here in Livermore. So I went to that event and spoke and presented a proclamation recognizing and celebrating the 40th anniversary. And so some of the more significant celebrations, and I've written a lot of these too. So we try to keep staff time to a minimum, but just because it does a major component is the cost of staff time. But these types of events where it's really the council's time, and if we can minimize the staff impact on that, those are the sorts of things that I think really mean a lot to the community, because it shows that we're willing to invest our own time in these events, and that we do celebrate the diversity that we have in our community. We were both at the World's Cultural Fair that the Livermore Area Youth Advisory Commission put on. That was a great event. That was, but again, that was mostly a lot of the young people coming together to really make that happen.
Well, I guess I was struggling with the title, because we got some of us got invited to the grand opening of Kaiser today at Dublin, which I would conclude the social event, but I can't imagine providing them with their diversity proclamation.
True.
So I'm struggling a little bit with the title, and then what the discussion is underneath it. So you're really talking about things more like what you're talking about, Mayor, about the Wally Festival and the Sikh Harvest Festival and Interfaith Thing, Rally for Love, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That's what we intended with the title. We could have put in parens related to diversity and inclusion. That might have been more clear. So.
Okay.
Yeah, we wouldn't have it for like the a tour of a facility.
Well, right. But I thought today's thing in Dublin was a social event. I would, maybe not everybody would characterize.
Probably we wouldn't do it for ribbon cuttings or groundbreakings or the whole variety
That's
of
what I'm
economic
getting at.
development events. So
I'm nitpicking, I suppose.
So, when I look at this, I think of it in a couple of different ways. So you've divided it into two categories. One is what council can do, and one is what city already does or could do. So that's one way to look at it, and the other is how much the resources that are expended. And so I'm wondering, could we just sort of quickly? I would like to throw out option 3. Under what the city does, and just say we're not spending general fund contribution on this, mostly because I don't think it's necessary. And I'd like to expand option 2, which is Livermore Youth Advisory Commission, to sort of look at how we collaborate with other groups, and then think about the workshop. So I agree with Vice Mayor Carling because if I said Bob, it wouldn't work. With the idea that we limit the ceremonial, we think about, we more carefully define ceremony and social events for not business things. I mean, I would have put Kaiser as it's a ceremonial,
Business.
but it's a business. There's another category.
Well, I think the context that we're talking about here is, in fact, the context is what are the sort of cultural diversity activities like Diwali and rallies and those things. But the more business-related one, that's not part of culture and diversity. They're important to our society, but I think that what we're talking about here goes back to the proclamation that we did on diversity.
So can I?
Well, I was just going to say that the second one also fits in with the other. So that's true. I mean, this sort of is broad ways to think about it.
Yeah, there are a few things, and this is Councilmember Monroe and I had talked about this before, but some of the categories to think about, and what we were just talking about there is what's an appropriate venue for such a conversation? So it's not just like any random one where you say, hey, I want to talk to you about such and such, and we're not out there necessarily trying to just proselytize, just inappropriately. But I think the first question is, which events or gatherings are appropriate? So that's, right, and I think we're all going to say only those that are appropriate. Now, there are two main areas of organizational thinking that are appropriate, and there's that broad range of the different cultural events in which it is, in fact, it's the clash between cultures that gives us this problem fundamentally. So cultural events are certainly appropriate. And then the other area of meetings in which such a conversation is appropriate is schools, because that's where a lot of the problems are occurring. So what you get then is we would want to coordinate with the various cultural organizations and then be able to show up and, when appropriate and when invited, to be able to speak to it. Now, the proclamation isn't going to be always fresh. Now it is. But the point is, should the council have some leadership role in having the conversations that these organizations want to engage in? And so I would say that the cultural organizations and the schools definitely want to have this. So that's the first way I would say that. Now, how do we do this? So one area I'd like to suggest is that we have the intergovernmental meeting, and that's an appropriate venue to have conversations with the park district, the school district, and the college about what gatherings would be appropriate, and that we can coordinate that way. And that we also have the Youth Advisory Commission and other youth organizations that we should listen to and try and leverage as to how can we engage in a useful conversation with what groups. And I think that, I've, with respect to the vaping as an example, gone to a couple of events at high schools, been invited by the parents' organizations to do that. And that's a case where then you're able to engage with the community with people who are very interested in the topic. So that's an example of how to be reasonable about this. Now, are there other classes of organizations besides the schools and the cultural ones that would be appropriate? I don't know. We haven't thought of any, but we're not talking about the various car dealerships or whatever, that kind of thing. So that's one suggestion, is that we leverage the intergovernmental meeting as a way to reach out and just see what might be appropriate. And the other one is that we do a youth advisory commission. And then the third suggestion that I wanted to bring up is that, as was noted, we already do a lot. So I would suggest that we have a dedicated section of our website in which we actually list everything we do, and that the proclamation would be prominent there, and then this in support of this mindset. So those are the three things that I think would be appropriate here.
I think you left out another group of organizations that are very key to this diversity discussion, and those are churches. Because I participated in this interfaith Thanksgiving.
Right. No, I didn't.
Which is very fundamental and key.
I used the wrong word when I said cultural, but I meant, that the churches are basically a part of a culture. So I was just being more broadly. So it's
but you need to include them in the discussion, especially if you're going to be talking about activities in the community.
Right. But I was just trying to be broad because not all religions go to a church per se, right? So I'm just trying to be more inclusive. That's all. That's why
we'll call it faiths.
That's what I'm saying.
How about religions?
Well, anyway, that's all I'm trying to say is that there are the people that worry about society and how we interact with one another, and then there are their educational aspects. But I meant more broadly. So I didn't mean to leave out the churches.
But as you pointed out, there are those that do not have religion, but they still need to have a place at the table, as you pointed out.
Well, so I think what Councilmember Warner is talking about is it's largely intergovernmental, right?
Right.
So
that's one facet.
Right, that's one facet. But if we look at Rally for Love coming up, if we look at the Interfaith Thanksgiving, if we look at Community Service Day, all of those have they are places that we could leverage, if you will. That's a terrible word to use, but I can't think of a better one. To have discussions bring people together in this way. I think those are fundamentally different than LAAC and school and so on.
Yeah. I was saying that there's the school path, and then there's this broader cultural interfaith set of organizations. We don't have an official governing body get together with those, and so it'd have to be more ad hoc. And then I guess the question is, where would be the point of contact with the council or the city government? We have one with the intergovernmental for the schools, for instance. We don't have an official point of contact for the broader cultural sense, and we might think about how to do that.
Well,
we could appoint two of us to do that.
Yeah. So, that sort of goes into the workshop light, which needs a better term, because really what we're talking about is community discussion of some kind. That's workshop's the only term available. Is that correct, staff?
What would be helpful to us is for you to define the outcome you're looking for,
and then
we'll find the best instrument to get you there. Workshop is one we're familiar with, and it generally talks about something where you have a single topic, which is sort of not a regular business meeting, but where it's a full noticed meeting where all 5 of you can participate in a public manner.
Well,
there may be other alternatives to get you where you want to go.
But the thing is, with the way we've done the workshops on the budget or the goals and priorities, it's kind of a stilted interaction with the community. And what we're talking about is something that's, we say the term workshop light, it's more informal. And the objective that you just asked for, and the way I would state it, is that more than 2 of us could show up and talk about inclusiveness and in society. And that I don't know that would ever lead to necessarily a particular ordinance or anything, but just so that we could show up and have the conversation with the community.
Well, now, so is the question to have the city put on that type of workshop, or to have another community partner put on that workshop, and then we participate as council members? We do that already. We do that currently.
Right, but with 3 of us and with a substantive conversation that could lead eventually to action.
Well, we had very similar. Well, Councilmember Carling participated in a program at Livermore High School, a similar one that I participated in at Granada High School, where we had a very large community conversation.
Right, that was individually. What we're talking about is that 3 of us.
2 of us. Unless we
the question, well, that was the point. Is there a method in which we could allow more than 2 of us to show up at one of these events? Because we're not talking about them happening that frequently.
But are we going to have 3 people providing 3 different opinions, or are we going to have
just
2
a
or
conversation
3 talk about what the council's position or the city's position is?
I think the spirit, and I'll turn it back over to Councilmember Monroe, is for us to just engage in the conversation and for us to 3 at least simultaneously to say what we think. We're not allowed to do that without some kind of noticing, right, on something like this. We can show up and say what has already been decided. But the question was, is there something, we'll call it a workshop light, where we can show up, more than 2 of us at a time, and actually engage in a conversation? So I see Jason's desperate to say something.
I'm not desperate, but I would like to just weigh in a little bit here. So, as you mentioned, you can show up at a ceremonial event on something by somebody else, and you can provide your comments. Where Brown Act tends to intrude in this conversation is where you went next, Councilmember Warner, which was leading to an action item. So if you're talking amongst yourself about bringing that back and having a formal city action, there's a way to do that. That's the Brown Act. We have to actually have a notice meeting, and you have to comply with all those rules and regulations, if that's where you intend to go. If the intent, however, is just to show up to participate as you would any other resident or citizen participating in some event, and you're not collectively coming to a collective decision or action by the city, that's fine. But if you do want to have a conversation that could lead to official city action, we'd have to notice that.
So, okay, so you just made another distinction that there's a difference between making a decision and just letting more than 2 of us at a time express our opinion. So did you intend to make that distinction?
You can do that. The caveat that remains for all exceptions to the Brown Act is you can appear in those items that are exceptions as long as you don't collectively discuss amongst yourself something that could lead to action. So if one of you stands up and say, I support this and here's my thoughts, someone else gets up and says that in parallel, that will be tolerated by the Brown Act. However, if you get up there, Councilmember A says, I support this, Councilmember B says, I do too, and I like what you had to say, and 3 says, that sounds like a great idea, then you're intruding back into the world of the Brown Act.
So I guess what I'd like to propose something. It's not a motion because I think that the motion needs to happen more broadly, but we've been sort of talking around this with the idea that Talk of Love is, Rally for Love, is coming up, and this would be an opportunity to pilot something. And I'd like to propose that we work on that we work, some number of us, whatever works with the Brown Act, work with Rally for Love to do a conversation that some number of us moderate and see how it goes. I'd like to see it work in such a way that the Brown Act is not invoked, but I'd also like to figure out how to, so have 2 of us or we don't talk. It sounds to me like we're running into trouble one way or another just because figuring out where the limits are can be difficult. So what would be the options for either remedying it if we go forth with it or preventing it in the first place if we go forth with it?
So let's do the avoiding it in the first place would just be showing up and participating in your individual capacity. That's already exists and is already provided for within the Brown Act. If everyone shows up, wants to participate in the Rally for Love and provide their own individual testimonial, that's fine. That's tolerated by the Brown Act. Where the Brown Act would be invoked is if there's a collective conversation amongst a majority of the council members coming to a conclusion or directing an idea of what an action that should be taken by the city. That's when the Brown Act gets invoked. If you have parallel conversations, that's fine. If you start talking to each other about an action, hey, let's go back and have the city do X. That's when the Brown Act would be invoked. Now, you can do that. And the way it would be is to comply with the Brown Act, which is a notice meeting. You have an agenda that also provide the opportunity for public comment. But beyond that, it's up to you and how you wanted to form public comment on that. We have a rule right now, which is required by the current government code, which says you have to allow the public an opportunity to speak on that item, which is part of your special meeting, your workshop, what have you. You have to provide that opportunity. You can change that if you so desire to be more expansive and to have a more robust dialogue. You can do that. But the bare minimum is you have to provide the public that opportunity to speak. If you make it a Brown Act meeting, those rules will then apply.
One of the challenges, obviously, is you've now commandeered someone else's event when you do that. And so that sort of is a sensitivity. So one of the questions for you all is understanding, essentially, the concepts that you can speak about your individual perspectives as council members all in the same place in the same time. But then you need to be extremely vigilant about, collectively coming to and next week, we're all going to vote on X. Now, what one or more of you could come away from that is your own thoughts going, gosh, I heard 3 great ideas. And next time we have a council meeting, I want to do a matters initiated and see if I can get anybody else to sign up for fill in the blank. That's not a violation, but it requires a strict monitoring by you as individuals as to that behavior. As long as those thoughts remain your own during the thinking of all those great things, rather than collectively all 5 of you going, yes, I'm in favor of that, and I'd pass a law. That's sort of where you've stepped over the line. That needs to be reserved for in these chambers.
So could we all say, yes, we all love love, and that would be okay, but if we said all love love and we're going to make a law about it, that would not be okay. Is that the distinction we're making? Okay.
Pretty close. I would say if each one of you individually says, I love love, I love love, I love love, that's fine. If one of you gets up there and says, hi, collectively, all 3 of us stand up, we say, all love love. That's parallel conversations, not collective conversations.
So to Mark's point about hijacking somebody's event, I've been to every Rally for Love. I was at the Rally for Families. I was at the March for Science. And we both spoke at the Rally for Families. But you're talking about an entirely different thing. The rally, all these different rallies had different service providers and volunteer groups and support groups. So it would be fundamentally changing somebody else's program, because you and I both spoke at the Rally for Families in tandem. No, yeah, but I would say we both spoke there. But if you suddenly start having a parade of council people, I guarantee you're going to lose the audience.
We happen to have Shana Pete from Rally for Love. Coincidentally, could she speak to this?
She already spoke.
She did.
But could she speak to whether they would be in favor of having this take place?
What take place?
Just a second.
Well, that would be something that would be organized outside of here. We don't want to collectively organize somebody else's event.
So I think,
council.
Can I just say something? I think the premise here is that we would be invited, not that we would hijack.
But we're already invited. We're already invited to all these.
So what I just want to say, what I just heard is, sounds pretty good to me, because one of our objectives is to minimize staff time. This is a particular topic that you wouldn't think we would, so sensitive that we would somehow really screw up in the Brown Act. And so I think that on this one, we don't need to have formally announced meetings, and we just got to we understand the rules and we'll be careful. And that's the most practical way through this. And that and therefore we don't endanger hijacking anybody's meeting. And if we're invited, we can show up, but we don't crash a party. That's where I would go on it.
Just show up. That's 90% of the success is just showing up.
Anyway, that's where I'm at on this.
I agree.
So do we need a motion to go forward? No.
If you're invited, show up.
Well, there were several different areas, and I don't know that. I mean, so, if we look at council, I mean, again, we go back to there's 6 different items on here. How do we think about those? And do we want to do a dedicated website? Do we want to work with other agencies? Don't we have to take some kind of action to make those things happen?
Mm-hmm. Well, to the dedicated website. Where do you stop and where do you start? Because there are 300 members of the Nonprofit Alliance, and everyone would like their piece of our website. So do you then turn over the website to have somebody else manage that?
No. That
runs into problems.
So the idea was, we said that we're doing a lot, and so the suggestion was that we just publicize what we're doing.
We could do that.
What we are doing. Mm-hmm. That was it, right? Not what everybody else is doing, but that was the suggestion. Just have a page on the website that lists what we're doing in support of this thought. and the thought being encapsulated in the proclamation. So that was it. So it wasn't put everybody's website and manage everybody's website.
So you just put like everything that the council members go to, that the council member went to for that there's the Syriac Orthodox anniversary is coming up. So would we put that on the website?
Well, I think that's that's at the margin, the kind of thing. I think what we were really talking about is what city resources are being expended here, and we're free.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. But again, if you're going to be putting that onto the website, that's going to take.
No, I don't know if it's everybody. I don't think it. If in fact we attended something and we wanted it up there, then we could ask to do it. I wouldn't ask staff to try and actively manage and make sure it's 100% correct as to everything everybody did.
I think the important thing we're trying to get to is if we are invited to participate at a cultural event, we show up. If we're asked to speak, we speak. But that's how we show our support, is our active engagement. And this is something that I've been doing since I got here. And a lot of us have been to a lot of these events. And I think that's the way the community knows that we support these efforts, is we show up and we participate.
So the only question was, do we want to put the proclamation up on the website, and do we want to make some attempt to list what we do, or just say, well, it must be obvious to everybody because we're doing a lot? Well,
I think we can certainly post that particular, since we voted on this, the proclamation celebrating diversity in the community. And then what we do after that is when we're invited, we show up, we participate.
So that doesn't actually meet the. When we started talking about this, one of the concerns is it's purely symbolic. And
that's why we live it. That's why we do this on a daily basis.
And I guess one of the things that the workshop or the community town hall or whatever could do, that if it's not connected to another event, it's an opportunity to address some of these issues. And there's a couple ways to do it. One is we just say, look, this is an issue we want to take on separate from showing up at someone else's event. Or we can also talk about, this is something we want to take on in talking to.
So do you want the city to then conduct the workshop?
That's another way to go. My concern is that when we just show up, then we are making this more symbolic. And I think symbolism is good. I think it's the place to start, as I've talked about. But I think that the act of bringing people together as council members either can is a separate action, and showing up at ongoing activities is part of that. It is not clear to me it is sufficient. I think that working with the other organization, the other intergovernmental organizations as well, to think about these things might not be a bad place to go. I hear you about hijacking the events. I mean, I think in some cases events would like to be working in concert, but we could also do this as council members.
I'd like to participate in workshops with the school district, and as you pointed out, with the intergovernmental. That is jumping.
So can I suggest?
It's unclear what we're trying to do here.
So here, what I was going to say is, could we take one topic at a time, because the conversation is going across all of them simultaneously. So can I try that? Just one topic at a time. So the first, and in random order, the first one was, do we want to dedicate any of our website to publicizing what we do beyond listing the proclamation? So that's the first question. So let's not get into all the others. Simply, do we want to list on the website how the city participates in this or not?
I guess one question I have is...
Wait. Let's just stay on that topic. Oh, okay.
Sorry, no, this is in response to, here's what the staff does. It processes 80 special event permits per year. It does all kinds of things. This is a response to what the city already does. And I guess my question is to the staff as to whether this would be something that would, how would you feel about that much? Would it be that much more work? Would it be something that would
Would what be that much more work?
Taking this information and publicizing it in some
Which
dedicated
information?
The majority of permits require review.
But those are special events permits, like when the Amgen tour comes through or something like that. Those are some of the special events. I'm just curious, what actually are we trying to, what's the result that we're looking for?
Right.
What are we trying to do?
Right.
Letting people know we're already living it, making that explicit in some way. And this
Why
would
is
be
that
part
so
of making it
important?
explicit.
Why is that so important to you?
Why is which important to me?
Making it so explicit of what we're already doing.
Because I don't think that people necessarily already know.
Does it matter?
I think that there's a whole lot of assumption that when you do things, people see them being done. I actually don't think people necessarily see them being done. I think that many times work that's done remains invisible, and
Okay.
it's simply making it visible.
But why? Why is that important to you?
Because it does speak precisely to the mayor's point, which is we already do this.
Well, and when we go
Sure,
to
but
the
again,
Rally for Love, the media is there. We get coverage on multiple media platforms, and on a number of things, we have a PIO that launches a lot of information out there. We send out press releases, which are then picked up by a number of the local media outlets, which gets that information out there. A lot of the stuff we also report out from the council. So we do get a lot of that information out into the community through both social and traditional media.
We report out to the community. It's 10:10. I'm looking out at the people who are here, and I am seeing 6 members of the community, one of whom is a reporter.
And they can watch this on demand if they so desire. Anybody can watch this at any time of the day they want on TV 30. On video on demand.
I've always figured that when I attend these things, and I attend Diwali and so many other things in town here, that kind of said it all.
So
you're out there in the open among these people.
Yeah, and so we didn't let the staff maybe trying to answer the question so we can get out of here. But the point is, yes, we do these things and they do happen. The fundamental question is, do we want to collect them in one place that's easily accessible? That's the question.
I don't think anybody would access it.
I don't care.
Pardon?
I don't think anybody would access it.
Okay.
So when I worked at the Water District, we had an information site that was real-time information on water quality, and we had this idea is that so that anybody could get the information on water quality that they wanted instantly, and at the end of the month, we tallied up everybody that accessed the information, and it turned out most of the people accessing the information were the people that worked at the Water District.
I think
Nobody took it from the outside.
I want to try and get through this. I think the question was, do we want to do this? And I think I'm seeing 3-2 at best against. And can we just get through this? I mean, we can keep going through it, but I would.
What I see is that it's an ego thing.
Yes.
That I want that somebody wants to, but that they're doing something out in the community and they want to be able to get credit
I think,
for it.
You know, we used that phrase earlier, selling past the close. Can we march through this? Can we take each topic and then just dispense with it?
Well, I'm just still trying to figure out, other than self-aggrandizement, what are we trying to achieve here?
This isn't about us. This is about the staff.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I've heard.
So look, let's do this. Can we? My request is, can we take each of these topics? Can we tee them up and can we vote and get it over with?
Okay, but I'm still looking for what the purpose that we're trying to achieve.
But it doesn't, okay.
Because if you're going to authorize staff to do something, what is it that we're trying to achieve?
I think that's moot at this point.
Well, okay, so what are we trying to do here? Somebody wants to put something on the website that somebody's doing something.
So can't be, look, can we at least vote on the topic or drop the topic? But I don't want to keep rehashing the topic. Okay, I'll move that we dedicate part of the website to have the proclamation and a list of events that are in support of that concept.
So that staff would be tracking all the events related to that?
Doesn't have to be all, but anyway, that's the motion. I just want to get through this because we're not going to.
I'll second just so we can vote on it and move on.
Wow, that's one of those, are you still beating your wife sorts of things.
It isn't. It isn't. I understand the concern. Let's just tee it up and be done.
Well, okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Warner, seconded by Councilmember Monroe. Any discussion on the motion? I don't see what, other than requiring staff time to monitor all the different functions in the city in support of diversity, I don't really see the value other than, as I said, telling everybody, oh, the council member's doing this. Okay, so with that, I'll call the question. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? No.
There we go. Good. We're done.
All right, next.
So the next one was, do we get the permission, approval, whatever, to have a conversation at the intergovernmental meeting as to what might be appropriate meetings in which
effort between the three agencies.
Right, or in some ways, and in particular, with the college and school district, just to say, is there anything that group sees that's worthwhile doing? And just through those auspices. I don't know what it would be, but
I
just
think as a member of the intergovernmental agency, you could bring that up.
Okay, then that's good. So do we need to vote on that, or we just?
I don't think you need any vote on that from
Okay,
here.
good.
Just bring it up and see where it goes in intergovernmental.
I mean, great. That's all I wanted.
Okay.
Can we speak to the LAAC, the number 2 on the under the council? Is that staff? No, I'm sorry. Number 2 under staff. So that's simply supporting the World Cultural Fair.
Yeah, I thought that was a great effort.
Do we need to have a motion on that?
I think that they did it last time with staff direction already. The city council didn't need to make a motion on that. That was a programmatic decision.
Oh. Yes, we would like direction on that.
Yeah, but that was a programmatic decision. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Can we speak to thinking about workshops, town halls, or anything like that? I guess 2 of us can just go out and do what we want to do.
I do 2 town halls a year.
So I guess we don't need a vote on that.
Yeah, I mean, we're already doing that. In the last town hall we had, there was actually more staff there than anybody else. Okay, are we finished with? So this was 6.02.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Back to where we. Okay, 6.02. We got to do the sub-diversity. Okay, so. This is matters initiated and member reports. Councilmember Coomber.
Well, LAVTA Finance and Administration meeting on the late April, and then last week we had our monthly board meeting. And in fact, since I forgot the issuing order, I'm going to probably leave that to you if you've got it written down.
No, it's we got another the state transit agency of the year.
Of the year. Yes, yes.
We got one in 2018. Got one in 2019.
Outstanding for LAVTA. So
Huzzah.
we're
different work.
I could talk to you about the budget, but no, we just this is a very impressive piece of work for the staff at LAVTA, and we're real proud to have been on the board and watched this happen. It was a surprise to me, and it was a good thing that it happened. I had no other meetings that I attended. I did have a matter to initiate, and that is a couple of separate individuals came to me in the last couple of days talking about crossing the street at 3rd and Maple. There's now a lighted crosswalk there. I would love to have staff find out if a stop sign might be appropriate with all the school kids and elderly neighbors and things walking across there. I kind of think it's something we should look into, and I know from crossing there that it's pretty dicey at times.
All right. Is there concurrence? Essentially, so we will do a little research on that and write you back a memo.
Thank you.
And the specific request is corner of 3rd and Maple to consider whether that should be a stop sign controlled intersection.
Yes, on the Maple sides.
Okay. Councilmember Monroe.
Okay, so it's been a month, which means that rather than going day by day, I kind of grouped this into categories. The Homelessness Subcommittee held its 2nd and 3rd meeting on near-term solutions. The second meeting was with residents, people who have houses. Those were to explain garbage, lockers, showers, and restroom possibilities. I should say those were largely attended by people with houses. The second one was specifically to address those who were unsheltered. We had about 30 people who showed up. What was really interesting to me was the contrast between the two, in that the first meeting really was about the specific solutions, and in the second, it was interesting to hear a much more global approach to how to think about the issues as a whole. So it was really very, very helpful to have that. Let's see. I've also been working with the League of California Cities and the MTC ABAG Housing Legislation Working Group, which, to Mr. Stein's point earlier, has been dealing with, among other things, SB 50. And so the question is, what happens when housing is put in without anything else to support it? In order to make housing work, you have to have transportation to support it. You have to have jobs that are hopefully more than closer than 2 hours away, closer than 1 hour away. Let's try 30 minutes maybe. And it would be nice to have some that don't pollute the air. Transportation that doesn't pollute the air. Within cities, you need infrastructure, you need amenities. And so working on trying to explain that at the state level has been a challenge. I also attended EBC, East Bay Energy Choice, and Tri-Valley Transportation Commission meetings. And then within also working within the Tri-Valley area, we have the opportunity, I've mentioned this before, to develop a community group to work on monitoring and mitigating air quality. We don't have great air in Livermore. I'm sure none of you have noticed this. And so we're working on developing a group of stakeholders from the grassroots community level to work on those issues. Then, let's see, I also attended the Livermore Police Department Awards along with many others up here. And I have to say the stories that were told of the awards that were given were hair-raising. I dropped in on Community Service Day. Unfortunately, it was I was at services and then zipped in, but was really glad to be able to see all the people who worked. I've heard many numbers. I've heard 800. I've heard 1,200. I've heard over 1,000. I think Mr. Schaefer knows the right number. 900. There we go. And following that, I also went to the Tri-Valley Innovation Fair. And then this past Thursday, toured the LDS Temple in the Oakland Hills, which was, again, with some of the people here. Fascinating experience, and really an experience in diversity. And then today, along with Vice Mayor Carling, attended the Kaiser opening in Dublin. So it's been a month. I had a couple of matters to possibly initiate. One is with regard to all these housing bills, which are in the they're going to continue to come. This is a matter where I feel like we have a responsibility to educate the city, and I'm wondering about the possibility of doing some kind of my goal would be to find a way to educate the city, whether that be through the newspaper, through a forum in which these issues can be discussed, through online, chats, I have no idea. But I'm giving you the goal, and I'm wondering if it's possible to come back with a discussion on that. Second of all, the issue I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Well, it's a moving target right now. We've got an ACTC subcommittee on 50, and so it's morphing right now. So as it continues to change, it's a moving target. So one of the things we could do is once they start to finalize it, we've got some time on that. Something like that could be used to put in the our community newsletter.
Well, I guess my concern with this is that. This is the time where if citizens wanted to weigh in at the state level, giving them information might not be a bad idea.
Aren't there dozens of them?
Oh, hundreds.
There's 300.
Are you talking about
summarizing all? No. I would think about it more in terms of how do you think about how these things are all linked? Because I don't know that most people do. And I feel like at a city level, maybe we can reach people who don't it's a chance to educate.
This would be something, through what medium?
That was why my question was.
So something like this would be an ideal thing to have, like the local media cover something like that. I know that there have been articles in some of the local media regarding SB 50, and that just combined with SB 4.
Right, absolutely. And the middle-sized cities got left out.
Pardon me?
The middle-sized cities got left out.
Of course, just like we always have. And because the go ahead and finish. So the big three cities are concerned that if it goes to ABAG, that their power is going to be diluted, and that's why they continue to dig in.
Well, so my goal wasn't to get a conversation about it going. It was simply like, do we have to see if we had a chance to educate our city about the issues in general.
My question to you is by what mechanism do you suggest?
That was what I was asking, if we had city staff to come back to us with some ideas.
I'd limit it to SB 50, or that seems to be the one that's. I mean, otherwise you're opening a Pandora's box of all these. And keep it relatively narrow. SB 50 is the one that's getting most of the attention anyway.
Well, you have the CASA Compact in general.
So at one end of the spectrum, your work on the housing framework for the Tri-Valley laid out the Tri-Valley Cities Collective strategic objectives on each of these housing areas, not bill by bill. And that is online, and that we could provide a forum for you to get an update from us, a legislative update from us, and have some discussion around that. At the other end of the spectrum is bill-specific, and the difficulty with that is, as you know, it literally changes day by day. And so it's your staff is struggling with what to do. We understand the idea, but we haven't got a great response for you on how to facilitate, other than what we could do, and what is certainly permissible in your rules, is for us to give you a legislative update at your next meeting, which would be somewhat generic in the staff work, and then we could add color commentary in the actual presentation, because things would have changed in the 10 days between when we published and when you'll actually be talking about it, to at least tell you about strategically where things are moving and what are still hot topic items. Short of that, I think for people to go on the website, you really do have to want to go, and I think that's a fairly small universe of people. I think you're probably one of your bigger universes, strangely enough, is people who actually watch this meeting, either live or on tape, and that at least might be timely enough, because I'm struggling with also anything else takes so much time the game will be over.
Well, there was a front page article in one of the local media about the legislative platform adopted by the Tri-Valley cities regarding the CASA compacts. So
Is this the one with Newell Arnerick in it?
Pardon me?
Is this the one with Newell Arnerick in it?
Yeah, he was quoted in that. But so I think the local media is probably one of the best places that we can look to get the message out. And they seem to be covering some of that.
I'm sorry,
It's okay.
We got lost.
We
here.
resolved it.
Oh, good. And the answer was?
We're going to depend upon local media because the local media covered the legislative platform that was produced by the 5 Bay Area cities in the Tri-Valley.
The other piece that you're going to have is you're going to have your Tri-Valley City Council's meeting here very shortly, and there will be a comprehensive update from Townsend, who represents all of us, and that actually could be you could do one of two things. Either we could post pieces of that on our website, or again, if you'd like to agendize that, at least for the ability to discuss sort of an update on housing legislation, we could sort of give a placeholder on your next agenda to at least do that. Or we could actually have Townsend come and actually help us with a discussion on that item. Because I think this one is actually probably going to be one that does ultimately have some impacts on the community. And I think until the bills become actually law, now is the time to have people be involved. And I think using this forum, your city council forum, to at least have that discussion is probably the best way to reach people.
I think having Townsend out here would be a great idea.
Very good. Let us see what we can do to set that up. And we'll take that as a matters and enough head nodding. Very good. Okay. Thank you.
And then the last thing is what I raised with 4.03, which is the question around what are the rules that the city follows and that are bound by state in terms of hiring contractors, especially for low-skill jobs.
So we can provide you an information memo back on what are the rules currently. And then if you want to do something about that. So one.
What was the request?
To provide, as well, I'll say it the way I understand it, let's see, which is to provide information on what the rules are for contracting currently under state law, and what are minimum rules for the employees who would be essentially contracted.
Because one of the reasons we changed contractors is because of poor performance by our current.
That is true. One.
Okay, sure.
2, 3, okay.
Right? That's it?
That's it?
Okay,
yeah.
very good.
Sorry. Wasn't that enough?
Yeah, sure. Councilmember Warner.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned, Councilmember Coomer mentioned the LAPTA meeting, and I think that is really pretty good about the transit agency getting the awards. And I was on it several years ago, and then I just got back on it, and I can see the difference in the agency, and I think we got good leadership there. So that's going well. And the police award ceremony was really moving, and I very much enjoyed that. I got to sit next to the people who got the Officer of the Year, so that was good. On the matters initiated, I was walking in the other day to City Hall and following the guy who was carrying the wad of papers, must have been 50 pounds, for the Growth Brothers site. So, and then I was down there and I just saw all this paper. So my request, and I've run it past staffs, and so they are amenable to this, and that's to come back by the end of the year with a feasibility study on going paperless within, say, X years, 3 years or something like that.
Have you seen my office?
Well, That's why I'm also joking. Somebody could run on cleaning up City Hall, you know. So the
avalanche.
Right. So so do I get just come back with a study? Does it get 3 hits on it?
To produce the plans and
well, just to go
paper-
paperless.
without paper.
So, Councilmember Warner, is this a universal request or one that is specifically related to development review?
Well, it was motivated by the development, and there's certainly probably the most paper there, but it's in general, and that goes with the
You
the
just
second.
made the job a lot more complicated when you did that. Was my only twitch.
Well, no, you just come back with you answer that question. It's just
okay.
The goal is, you know.
So what areas?
50 years from now, we're not going to be using paper.
Fair enough.
Right?
So
So
what
at
area-
some point, we're not going to be using paper anywhere. So how do we get to there?
Okay. And what are the low hanging fruit on sort of moving toward going paperless?
Like
and
we saved
essentially, what's the plan to
809
get there?
pages.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
Right. I mean, it was when I first started here, we were getting the big binders, and the fellow city council members, when they show up at labs or something, they got these big binders. I mean, let's got to get over that. Right. So, well, you got to, you know. So that was the question. How do we go paperless? And what's the rational plan? And to think about it and come back with some thoughts on it by the end of this year.
1, 2.
That sounds reasonable.
And then the other one was, you know, I went through had to get tree removal permit, and it just struck me that there's an opportunity for being able to submit certain permit requests online. That didn't require a being physically present to do it. And especially since we're talking about with the sidewalks and everything, that there are, some straightforward permits that we could very easily get online.
And some we already have. Could we combine this with the former item as also, so essentially reducing a paper application, dealing with online? Very good. We'll combine that into one.
All right. Vice Mayor Carling.
Thanks. So back in April, I participated in the Stony Creek grand reopening, which many of you know about. It's out on East Avenue near, not too far from Vasco. But the Eden Housing has completely renovated those homes, and it is really, they've done a nice job in the renovation and the remodeling of those homes out there. So that was on the 23rd. I've had a couple of stop waste meetings since the last time we mentioned. I also participated in the police department awards banquet. Yes, the stories were hair-raising, but the thing that I came away with is how lucky we are to have the people that are keeping us safe working for this community. Because they disarmed a couple of different situations that you talked about through no injuries, no loss of life. And I think there certainly must have been some tense moments out there until they disarmed some of the folks that were having some mental breakdowns. So I give all those folks a lot of credit, and a lot of different parts of the police department come together to address those particular issues when they come up. And it's a remarkable bunch of people that we have keeping us safe and secure. Yes, 2 homeless meetings, and I don't need to belabor that more than what my colleague mentioned. And my wife and I both participate in community service. I worked at Hageman Farm, scraping paint off the fences.
And you were doing a great job.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, and my wife was actually sewing bags that the LDS was going to pass out to the homeless folks. So we both, I think, we felt good about doing that and participating with the community. Sue and I were both pleasantly surprised that we knew very few people there. I knew the mayor because I saw him and Councilmember Monroe, but and maybe one or two other people, but it was remarkable the number of families, young families that were there participating. And I guess because my kids are in their 40s, I don't know as many people with young kids these days like I did once upon a time. So it was rather remarkable to me, to the number of families with children that were out there and all having a good time. And then, like my colleague, I also went over to the Innovation Fair, and that was well attended also. And I was, again, quite impressed with the families that were there, the kids that were enjoying the demonstrations and participating in a lot of the activities. So that was, again, another great event in town, and it was a wonderful time, I'm sure, by all. So that's it for me.
All right. Busy. Yeah, the Stony Creek was a great event. And I remember it was probably 10 years ago that I was part of the group that built the playground there. And that was once again, this wonderful community coming together to serve this community and giving the most valuable thing they have, and that's their time. The Community Service Day, a lot of folks out there, and the young families. And that's, seeing these little kids that are out there wanting to help and wanting to serve the community. And the police recognition, again, what a remarkable police department we have, and thank you so much for ensuring our safety here tonight and continuing to ensure the safety of this community. And as we just saw in our community service or our citizen survey, people feel safe in this community, and it's because we've got the remarkable people here, and that it's no mistake. Public safety is the #1 item in our budget. That's our top priority, is public safety, and we succeed because the community feels safe. Also, today I attended the 580 Hot Lane HOV Express Lanes meeting. So far this fiscal year, the toll lanes, the HOV lanes have raised $9.9 million. The operating expenses, operating budget's around $4.2 million, and all of those operations dollars stay within this transportation corridor. On the Planning Policy and Ledge Committee, they commented that AB 147 was passed and signed into law. That's the one that allows the collection of online sales taxes. And since a lot of those taxes go toward transportation, we can avail ourselves some of those. The state, now you remember in November we voted on Prop 6, which was to protect SB 1, and also we voted on a lock box to ensure that those funds would be guaranteed to be delivered. Well, now the state is proposing to tie, Sherry perks up. The state is proposing to tie the SB 1 funds to housing production. So this is all about using the formula funds which were cast in stone and guaranteed. These are the road and the road maintenance funds for streets and roads, that those were guaranteed to the communities. Well, now they're talking about taking them away if you don't build enough housing. So this is going to be another ongoing battle along with SB 50 and 4. And as I mentioned earlier, they did grant a waiver to Marin County, so Marin County doesn't have to abide by the rules that everybody else does. They're less than 600,000, thank you very much. And they're special. They did propose $750 million for technical assistance for housing production, and that those they would later be able to compete for $250 million for the production of housing. To give you a sense of scale, SB 1 was $5.7 billion a year. And this will propose to take $1.5 billion a year out of that. So this is a significant amount of funding. ACTC, the Alameda County Transportation Commission, of which I'm a member, is working to oppose this. We have, as I said, a subcommittee on SB 50. Now we're not coming out just flat out against it. We're trying to find ways to pick our battles on that. What are the main things that we object to with relation to the CASA Compact? a strange one, SB 328, Portantino, as a bill that would require the school day for middle and high schools, including those operated as charter schools, to begin no later than 8:30. That they would have to start after 8:30. One of the problems with that is, now we, as you guys know in the transit business, we have to get kids to school early on. And then those buses go out and then operate on the larger routes throughout the course of the day. So if all of a sudden they have to allocate buses later in the day, then it's going to impact their ability to serve the community on a larger basis. I'm sorry, no earlier than 8:30. Yeah, so no later. I'm sorry about that. Did I say later? Okay, no earlier than 8:30. They'd have to start after 8:30 or later. Yeah, so it's ACTC is working is looking to oppose that as well.
Can I just say one thing? Sure. Is that it was pointed out in LAFTA is that not regarded as a school bus agency.
It's true. Right. Well, and AC Transit, this is a big deal for AC Transit because they have a lot of their buses committed to dropping kids off at schools earlier on, and it's going to be a real difficult lift for them to get the kids to school at the same time provide all the city routes. So these are some of the issues that are coming up on. So we're following these with League of California Cities, and so we're keeping track of all of these. With that, that's all I've got. The next meeting is the budget workshop on May 20th.
12, 11, 10. All right.
Adjourned.